Chapter 85. However, at the thought of Bei Yunji's identity, the dean suppressed his anger and only glanced at Bei Yunji in disgust before he left with a cold expression. No wonder she was only acknowledged by the Qin family when she was already so old. The Qin family probably felt that they couldn't afford to lose face. Everyone in the school knew that Qin Youjiao was a fair, rich, and beautiful girl with excellent results. And because Bei Yunji had injured Qian Qingjun, she was quickly recognized by everyone. Therefore, in Hengda High School, almost everyone felt that Qin Youjiao and Bei Yunji were worlds apart. Not long after the dean left, Bei Yunji took off her hat and flipped open her extracurricular book. There was an iPad inside. "Student Bei Yunji, didn't you want to sleep?" Chu Zhixing could not help asking when he saw that Bei Yunji was awake. "I can't sleep," Bei Yunji said. Chu Zhixing immediately understood that Bei Yunji just didn't want to see the dean. After the first period ended, seeing that Lu Yuanxi had returned, everyone had different thoughts. Many people glanced at Bei Yunji gloatingly. Who didn't know that Lu Yuanxi liked Qin Youjiao? The others would take into account the Qin family or Bei Yunji's past actions and wouldn't dare to have a conflict with Bei Yunji. But Lu Yuanxi wouldn't. At this moment, everyone's eyes could not help but secretly glance at Lu Yuanxi and Bei Yunji. Even Chu Zhixing became nervous. They saw Lu Yuanxi walk in front of Bei Yunji expressionlessly. "Are you done with your homework? Let me copy it." Lu Yuanxi seemed to have just woken up and his tone was slightly low. "Why don't you borrow it from others?" Bei Yunji furrowed his eyebrows. Lu Yuanxi said matter-of-factly, "It's more suitable to copy from people of similar standards." Bei Yunji threw the homework on his table and couldn't be bothered to say anything. However, seeing this scene, everyone else was stunned. Why didn't Lu Yuanxi find trouble with Bei Yunji and even seem to have a good relationship with Bei Yunji? Ling Jiwei, who had found trouble with Bei Yunji before, couldn't help saying in a sharp tone, "Yuanxi, don't you know her identity?" In the past, Lu Yuanxi was the most protective of Qin Youjiao. But now, he actually didn't care that Bei Yunji stole Qin Youjiao. He was closer to Bei Yunji than anyone else in class. Lu Yuanxi glanced at her indifferently and returned to his seat. Seeing that Lu Yuanxi was ignoring her, Ling Jiwei shouted with a sharp voice, "She's the illegitimate daughter of the Qin family." Lu Yuanxi's gaze gradually turned cold. He slowly looked at her and sneered, "What does that have to do with me?" He had known this for a long time. Bei Yunji. Of Bei Yunji, Bei Yunji, Bei Qin, Bei Yunji, Bei Yunji, Bei Bei. Moreover, his new deskmate was much more pleasing to the eye than those girls who gossiped every day. Although his temper was quite bad. Bei, to Yunji, to Yunji. To Yunji Bei. Bei Yun. Yunji's Bei Ieei Yang Yudo Yyyyyyyyyyyyt. Seeing Bei Yunji looking at her, Ling Jiwei suppressed her inexplicable fear and questioned, "Aren't you?" Bei Yunji raised an eyebrow, as if she had suddenly thought of an interesting joke. Illegitimate daughter? That seems to be easier to accept than Miss Qin's identity. These words immediately caused the others to be confused. What did Bei Yunji mean? However, Lu Yuanxi's hand stopped and his eyes darkened as he glanced at Bei Yunji. But in the next second, everyone's thoughts were interrupted by the girl running in from outside. "Student Lu, Youjiao is hiding in the washroom and refusing to come out. I'm worried that something will happen to her. Could you please?" Chapter 86. Hearing this, before the girl could finish speaking, Lu Yuanxi's expression changed and he stood up immediately. "Where is she?" After that, Lu Yuanxi did not return for the entire morning, but news about Qin Youjiao had spread. It was said that Qin Youjiao could not stand the shock and because of a certain someone's existence, she had an emotional breakdown and hid in the toilet to cry until she fainted. Fortunately, Lu Yuanxi kicked open the toilet door and carried the unconscious Qin Youjiao to the infirmary. After that, even the school hunk, Qing Zihui, rushed over immediately when he found out about this. Everyone could not help but be envious. This Qin Yojiao was holding the female lead script and was treated like a treasure by all the male idols. In the infirmary, Cheng Zihuai's handsome face darkened as he clenched his fists. I knew it. This matter has something to do with Bei Yunj. Hearing Cheng Zihuai say this, Lu Yuanxi could not help sneering coldly. Cheng Zihuai, you don't have to push the blame to my desk mate. Why? Do you feel sorry for her? Cheng Zihuai looked at him coldly. It was not that he did not know that Lu Yuanxi's feelings for Qin Yojiao were different. But it was also his first time seeing him defend another girl. No. I just think that you guys are very prejudiced against her. Lu Yuanxi's lips curled into a mocking smile. After glancing at him, he turned around and left. He and Cheng Zihuai did not like each other to begin with and did not have the habit of saying goodbye before leaving. At this moment, Cheng Zihuai gritted his teeth and sent a message to Bei Yunj. Bei Yunj, you're really capable. These words could not hide his anger and sarcasm. But a few minutes later, she replied. Do I need you to tell me that? Instantly, Cheng Zihuai's expression darkened. Just as Cheng Zihuai's temper rose and he was about to settle the score with Bei Yunj, a weak voice suddenly sounded from the side. Zihuai, why are you here? The ruthlessness in Cheng Zihuai's eyes dissipated and he looked at Qin Yojiao, his tone gentle. Shouldn't I be here? Why didn't you take good care of yourself and did such a stupid thing? Hearing this, Qin Yojiao could not help but cry. My third brother and grandpa don't want me anymore. They've all changed. They only like Bei Yunj. After Qin Lang found out about Bei Yunj's scandal the day before yesterday, no matter what she said, he was certain that she had something to do with it. He even got someone to throw her things out and forbade her from staying at home. Later on, if Mother Qin hadn't rushed over, she wouldn't have known where to stay. After hearing Qin Yojiao's complaints, Cheng Zihuai frowned unhappily. Enough, Jiao Jiao, your third brother probably heard what Bei Yunj said. Don't worry, your third brother will definitely regret doing this. Qin Yojiao's tears flowed uncontrollably, making one's heart ache. But I really don't know what to do now. Third brother has never treated me like this before. Cheng Zihuai thought for a long time before a dark look flashed in his eyes. He hugged Qin Yojiao's shoulders and said with a comforting smile, Do you only have third brother? Your third brother is the youngest and is easily deceived. But eldest brother and second brother are not people who are easily fooled. I heard that your second brother returned to the country today. Really? Qin Yojiao, who had been sobbing non-stop, now her eyes lit up. Her second brother, Qin Yu. Actually, she rarely saw him because Qin Yu had severed ties with his family and gone to the entertainment industry to develop his career. However, no one thought that in just 4 years, Qin Yu would become the popular best actor. Chapter 87. However, all along, Qin Yu would get whatever Qin Yojiao wanted to make her happy. Although he would also prepare a set for Bei Yunj, in the end, Qin Yu had the least relationship with Bei Yunj. After all, Bei Yunj had lived at home for more than 2 years and had only seen Qin Yu twice. Then I'll ask second brother now when he will arrive at the airport. I'll go pick him up. Qin Yojiao said with a sweet smile. As long as she picked Qin Yu up in public, after Qin Yu's identity was exposed, everyone would still think that she, Qin Yojiao, was the most favored person in the Qin family. Soon. Qin Yojiao sent Qin Yu a message. Second brother, can I pick you up from the airport? I have something to tell you. Pitiful emoji. After sending the message, Qin Yojiao did not receive Qin Yu's reply and thought that he was busy. However, in the afternoon, Bei Yunj received several messages. Why did you blacklist second brother? Second brother brought you a surprise. Do you want to play with second brother after school? Did second brother make you angry recently? I'm sorry, Second brother was wrong. Can you ignore me? Bei Yunj's eyelid twitched. Why was this Qin Yu even stranger than Qin Lang? In her impression, Qin Yu's tone when he spoke to Qin Yojiao was not so coaxing and coquettish. At this thought, Bei Yunj suddenly felt that these biological brothers did not fit their personas. However, Bei Yunj's impression of Qin Yu was the best among the three brothers. Perhaps it was because Qin Yu's attitude towards the original protagonist was considered gentle and kind. However, in the original novel, second brother's ending was the worst. He was rumored to have a fetish for children and ended up being disfigured by his own fans with sulfuric acid. Bei Yunj's eyes darkened, but she still replied, "I'm not free." The moment the message was sent, the person on the other end replied to Bei Yunj very quickly. "Then second brother will pick you up after school? I'll take you to eat something and then send you back, okay? Second brother won't disturb Gu or studies." Pitiful emoji. Bei Yunj's eyes twitched. After replying, she threw her phone into the drawer. "Up to you." At this moment, Qin Yu, who had just gotten off the plane, couldn't hide his happiness. He could not help but call Huashidu. Half a minute later, Huashidu answered the call, and a pleasant and faint voice sounded. "If there's nothing else, I'll hang up." Qin Yu was very happy and was already used to Huashidu's casual attitude. "Master Du, I'm back in the country. I reckon that in 2 days, my Gu will follow me home. I've really troubled you all this time." There was no response from the other end of the phone. He didn't know if the signal was bad. Suddenly, the man's voice sounded again. His light tone was even more magnetic in the weak current. Did the child agree? Qin Yu's expression froze, but he quickly smiled and said, "Of course." Who knew? The man on the other end of the phone sneered and hung up. Qin Yu? Was he being mocked? The exit passageway. Outside, the fans had already gathered so tightly that not even a drop of water could leak out. It was only when a handsome man walked out that the screams of the fans continued for a long time. Qin Yu was wearing a white t-shirt that was casually tucked into his black pants. It accentuated his broad shoulders and narrow waist, and his figure was extremely proportionate. Chapter 88. What made the fans scream the most was, the man's well-defined hand was fair and slender. There were black English words tattooed on the inside of his forearm, and the paper bag he was carrying contained a teddy bear. Why did this scene look a little doting? "Ah, I'm gone." "Qin Yu, are you in a relationship?" "Hubby, what's wrong with the teddy bear? Are you having an affair?" This man's cold look when he's not flirting with me is also amazing. Hearing the screams, Qin Yu's thin lips curled up. "This teddy bear? I used it to protect my little princess." With that said, the entire venue was about to explode. However, before he could anger his fans, Qin Yu chuckled. "She's my biological sister." With this, the fans' attitude changed positively. "Hubby, when can I see our sister?" "Hubby's sister must be very pretty too." "Sister doesn't need a teddy bear. Sister needs a boyfriend." At this moment, Qin Yu was used to the first 2 sentences, but the last sentence almost made Qin Yu lose his balance. He smiled and turned to look at them. "No, she doesn't need it." After school. Qin Yojiao looked at the message on her phone anxiously, waiting for Qin Yu's reply. She had called Qin Yu several times just now, but she couldn't get through. Suddenly, a girl beside her patted Qin Yojiao's shoulder. "Jiao, are you okay? Why don't we go together?" Qin Yojiao glanced at the female classmate and remembered that she was Qin Yu's fan. A dark look flashed past her eyes. "Okay." Qin Yojiao put her phone back into her pocket and asked casually, "I heard that Qin Yu returned today?" "Yes, he arrived at noon today. It's a pity that I can't pick him up from the airport when I go to school." The girl sounded disappointed, but a moment later, she said enviously, "However, I heard from the sisters at the front line that Qin Yu said he has a younger sister today. He even brought his sister a teddy bear. I'm jealous." Hearing this, Qin Yojiao was a little surprised, but the corners of her lips couldn't help but curl up. It was probably a gift from second brother again. Qin Yojiao patted her shoulder. "All right, if you really like him a lot, then let's go." I'll see if I can get you an autograph. Really? Jiao Jiao, you're really a beautiful and kind fairy. The girl's eyes lit up with excitement. I won't lie to you. Qin Youjiao smiled confidently. Subsequently, when Qin Youjiao and the girl reached the door, Qin Youjiao saw a familiar figure. Although she was wearing a mask, she recognized her at a glance. It's second brother. Qin Youjiao couldn't help feeling excited, but she pretended to be calm on the surface as she walked towards Qin Yu with a smile. No wonder he didn't reply to her messages. He was here to pick her up. He was probably preparing a surprise for her, right? Second brother, why do you always like to tease people? Qin Yu said coquettishly. Qin Yu turned around and frowned unconsciously when he saw that it was Qin Youjiao. Why are you here? He sounded displeased. Qin Youjiao did not react in time and thought that Qin Yu was teasing her. Then, her eyes landed on the teddy bear and the paper bag in Qin Yu's hand. He was still pretending to be cold to her. He didn't even try to hide the gift he bought for her. At this thought, Qin Youjiao could not help but jump for joy. After glancing at the female classmate beside her, she coughed lightly. She reached for the teddy bear in the paper bag. Chapter 89. Seeing Qin Youjiao reach out to take his paper bag, Qin Yu immediately dodged her approach. Fortunately, she didn't touch it. Qin Yu heaved a sigh of relief and glanced at her coldly. It's not for you. Instantly, Qin Youjiao's smile froze and the grievances and anger that had accumulated during this period surged into her heart. Her eyes were charming and her tone was a little harsh. Second brother, don't tell me you want to give it to Bei Yunj. If that's the case, don't expect me to forgive you for the rest of your life. Qin Youjiao was sure that Qin Yu would be shocked to hear her say this. However, when Qin Yu heard this, ridicule appeared in his originally cold eyes and he turned to glance at her. Qin Youjiao, you found your biological parents 2 years ago. Isn't it bad to keep staying in the Qin family? Qin Yu asked casually, his tone a little unreasonable. Qin Lang still cared about Mr. and Mrs. Qin, so he was still willing to tolerate it. But Qin Yu was different. If he was willing to tolerate it, he wouldn't have cut ties with the Qin family and gone out to work for himself. However, Qin Youjiao, who was suddenly asked this, felt like she had fallen into an ice cellar. Her face was filled with disbelief and her face paled. Why would second brother say this about her? Second brother was clearly in charge of things and was a little cold to everyone. It was impossible for him to say this about her because of Bei Yunj. Before Qin Youjiao could speak, another voice sounded from the side. What are you doing here? Qin Lang's eyes widened. He didn't expect this Qin Yu to come to Hengda High School the moment he returned. What a wild ambition. Was he trying to coax Gu behind his back? Third brother. Qin Youjiao called out sweetly. Hearing this, Qin Lang couldn't help frowning. After glancing at Qin Youjiao, his thoughts changed. Was this Qin Yu crazy? He rushed back to fetch Qin Youjiao. You're here too. Qin Youjiao bit her lip, wanting to say something but hesitated. On one hand, she hoped that Qin Lang was here to apologize. On the other hand, she was afraid that Qin Lang would say that he was here to fetch Bei Yunj. It had only been 2 years and everything she had worked so hard to manage was going to be snatched away by Bei Yunj? This was impossible. She could allow her brothers to treat Bei Yunj slightly, but they could not surpass her. None of your business. Qin Lang's looks were also very outstanding. When he stood with Qin Yu, who was wearing a mask, he immediately became the focus of the crowd. Is that Crush? Ah. Of course. Did you see Qin Youjiao? Where's Qin Lang's sister? Damn, it's too sour. What kind of winner is Qin Youjiao? Wait a minute, the one next to him looks a little familiar. This outfit, this appearance, is it Qin Yu? Qin Yu? As soon as the girl's voice got louder, many people turned their heads and looked over. Qin Yu was the youngest and most popular best actor in the industry. The number of young girl fans was innumerable. Qin Youjiao, Qin Lang, Qin Yu. Damn, Qin Yu is also Qin Youjiao's brother? I'm going crazy. What kind of goddamn female lead script is this? Her brothers were all male leads. Think about it carefully. A few days ago, someone said that an illegitimate daughter would snatch Qin Youjiao's things. Now, her brothers are here to fetch Qin Youjiao directly. You have to know that Qin Yu has never exposed his identity in the 4 years since he debuted. Not far away, Qin Youjiao also heard these words. After seeing that someone was secretly taking photos, she unconsciously stood closer to Qin Yu. Those who didn't know better would think that Qin Yu had brought the teddy bear to fetch Qin Youjiao. P.S. By the way, this book hasn't been updated yet. If there are similar comments next time, it will be banned. Chapter 90. Qin Lang did not notice it, but Qin Yu, who was beside him, furrowed his eyebrows. He could feel the camera approaching Qin Youjiao. He smirked and pulled up his black mask. With a stride, he stood beside Qin Lang. He used Qin Lang to isolate Qin Youjiao. Soon. Sensing something, Qin Lang looked at Qin Yu. Look, was this something a human would do? However, in the next second. After Qin Lang regained his senses, he hurriedly avoided Qin Youjiao. After this scene was captured on camera, it looked very strange. Qin Youjiao stood by the side, but the two handsome brothers were standing next to each other. They looked like plastic siblings. Feeling that Qin Lang and Qin Yu did not want to get close to her, Qin Youjiao's expression darkened. The corners of her lips curled up stiffly, wanting to approach Qin Yu and Qin Lang. Second brother, third brother, Yu, suddenly. Qin Yu took off his mask, his dark eyes shining as he walked towards the school gate, as if Qin Youjiao did not exist. This scene made Qin Youjiao lose her composure, and her expression was as dark as the bottom of a pot. Especially when she turned around and saw Bei Yunj walking out of the door. Why did Bei Yunj come out? Qin Youjiao suddenly had a bad feeling and interrupted herself. No, it's impossible. Second brother isn't here to fetch Bei Yunj. However, with that said, Qin Yu, who was not far away, had already walked in front of Bei Yunj and gave Bei Yunj an affectionate hug. Gur, second brother missed you so much. With that said, Qin Yu could not help but pull down his black mask. His slender and tall body bent down and rubbed against her shoulder lightly. Everyone was stunned by this scene. After a few seconds of silence. Ah, it's really Qin Yu? Qin Yu is here to fetch Bei Yunj? Oh my god. I thought Qin Yu was here to fetch Qin Youjiao. After all, wasn't this the publicly acknowledged little princess of the Qin family? Hey, did you notice that Qin Yu and Qin Lang didn't talk much to Qin Youjiao just now? Qin Youjiao doesn't seem to be as doted on as the rumors say. Qin Yu's passionate hug just now was really shocking and enviable. After all, Qin Yu had never been involved in scandals in the industry. It could be said that this was the first time they had seen Qin Yu get close to the opposite sex. Then, someone retorted, there's no need to be jealous of the young miss, right? No matter what, Qin Youjiao had been in the Qin family for almost 20 years. When did Bei Yunj come back? How can she be compared to Youjiao? Hearing this, many people thought about it and felt that it was true. Qin Youjiao was a fair, rich, and beautiful girl with excellent character and academics. No matter how one looked at it, she was more likable than Bei Yunj. At this moment, Bei Yunj froze when she was suddenly hugged by someone. Can you let go now? Bei Yunj raised her eyebrows slightly and said indifferently. Hearing this, Qin Yu immediately let go of Bei Yunj and hid the paper bag behind him. Guess what second brother bought for you? Bei Yunj's eyebrows moved. She glanced at Qin Yu, whose eyes were shining, and could not help but smile. Diamonds? Qin Youjiao had a hobby of collecting diamonds, so Qin Yu would often buy these for Qin Youjiao as gifts. However, he had never lacked the original protagonist. However, a straight man like Qin Yu did not seem like he would pay attention to what a girl liked. He had always thought that all girls liked the same things. No. Bei Yunj stared at him and said nothing. Seeing this, Qin Yu immediately cowered. Chapter 91. At this moment, Lu Yuanxi, who had just left the school, saw this scene. It was his first time seeing his usually unrestrained deskmate remain silent and expressionless, revealing the conflict deep in her soul. Lu Yuanxi could not help but clench his fists and press them against his lips, laughing again. This gift was indeed not suitable for such a cool deskmate like him. Soon, Bei Yunj also spoke and rejected him with a smile. Thank you, but I don't like this kind of toy. It's better to give it to someone else. At this moment, Bei Yunj thought that Qin Yu had prepared the same gift for her as Qin Yojiao. However, Bei Yunj did not like it either. Especially this kind of stupid bear that she could not even touch. No, I bought this especially for Gu. Qin Yu rejected her immediately, his handsome eyes filled with seriousness. He leaned over slightly and looked at Bei Yunj at the same level, coaxing her in a low and flirtatious voice. Gu, the bear is very cute. Can you take it away? With that said, in an instant, the girls around them lost their minds and almost screamed. Where did this immortal brother come from? Why was he so handsome? Their blood was going to be depleted again. At this moment, Qin Lang's handsome face darkened, feeling sour and jealous. Haha. So what if he filmed a few more idol dramas? He actually flirted with his biological sister. Qin Yu, this be asterisk starred. Bei Yunj's eyelids moved. After feeling the intense gazes around her, she wanted to draw a line between her and this stupid bear. Aren't you going to eat? Bei Yunj interrupted Qin Yu casually. Hearing this, Qin Yu's mood improved even more. Gu asked him out for a meal. Gu was about to forgive him. Okay, second brother has already booked a restaurant. With that said, Qin Yu glanced at Qin Lang casually and smiled gently. However, I only booked 2 seats. Qin Lang was speechless. Could anyone be more inhumane than Qin Yu? Second brother, are you going with Bei Yunj? Qin Yojiao clenched her fists, her eyes filled with anger. She was so jealous that she was about to lose her mind. Second brother had always been indifferent to her. Back then, when she wanted second brother to bring her to meet his friends, second brother would always change the topic and never agreed. But now, second brother had come to fetch Bei Yunj personally. He even bought a gift for Bei Yunj and coaxed Bei Yunj like this. Even if it was in the past, she had never received such treatment. Isn't it normal? I only have my biological sisters a little bit. Unexpectedly, Qin Yu lifted his eyelids and said leisurely. And these words, Qin Yojiao's Qin. The surrounding people were even more stunned when they heard this. They were completely confused. What does Qin Yu mean? What do you mean you only biological sister? Are you talking about Bei Yunj? I think so. Did I hear wrongly? Qin is a Qin Yojiao didn't enter the Qin family halfway. She grew up in the Qin family and is a real young lady. Qin Yojiao had been the center of attention since she was young, so she naturally had a group of supporters. The discussion of the crowd was very soft, but Qin Lang, who was the closest, heard it. Qin Lang furrowed his eyebrows, his eyes cold. He was about to speak when he heard Qin Yu ask. What's wrong with your arm? Qin Lang turned back instinctively and saw that Bei Yunj was also looking at his forearm. He immediately became nervous. However, a few seconds later, Bei Yunj looked away calmly, making Qin Lang's heart feel empty. Chapter 92. Hearing this, Qin Yu furrowed his eyebrows unconsciously. Bei Yunj also glanced at Qin Lang. The scratch marks on his arm were not light at all. They looked a little tragic and there were even some purplish marks. Suddenly, Qin Yu thought of Qin Lang asking Qin Yojiao to move out. He must have angered Mrs. Qin. His voice was slightly cold. Did Mom do it? Aren't you going to eat? I still have something on, so I'll go back first. Qin Lang interrupted him and was about to leave when he stopped. He glanced at Bei Yunj and said softly, Third brother is investigating what happened online. And about your identity. Third brother will clarify it for you in a few days. Actually, the moment that incident came out, Qin Yu and Qin Lang wanted to clarify it. In the end, they were banned for 3 days. They couldn't even click on it. That was why Qin Yu and Qin Lang rushed over, afraid that Bei Yunj would be sad and hate them even more. No need, Bei Yunj said calmly. If it wasn't for the fact that she still cared about the original protagonist's grandfather, she wouldn't have anything to do with the Qin family. Qin Lang's eyes darkened and he said nothing. Let's treat the injury on your arm. Bei Yunj's tone was emotionless. However, with just a casual greeting, Qin Lang's dimmed eyes lit up again. Okay. Don't worry. I'm fine. Beside her, Qin Yu glanced at the smiling Qin Lang with some disdain. However, at the thought of Mrs. Qin actually hitting Qin Lang for Qin Youjiao, Qin Yu's gaze turned cold. Soon, his emotions dissipated. Let's go. Second brother will take you to eat. At this moment. When everyone saw this scene, they almost thought that they had seen fake news back then. Didn't they say that Qin Youjiao was especially favored in the Qin family? Why did the two brothers feel like they were fighting for favor in front of Bei Yunj when they ignored Qin Youjiao? Second brother, then you can go eat first this time. I'm not feeling well, so you don't have to take care of me. Qin Youjiao deliberately raised her voice so that everyone could hear her clearly. But in the next moment, Qin Yu glanced at her calmly and snorted. I didn't plan to care about you either. Hearing this, Qin Youjiao's body froze. Her widened eyes slowly moistened as she stared at Qin Yu in disbelief. At first, she thought that third brother had already gone overboard. Who would have thought that her second brother would make her even more bitterly disappointed? Let's go and eat. Bei Yunj was not in the mood to be a monkey in front of others. When Qin Yu looked at Bei Yunj, the coldness in his eyes disappeared and he said with a smile, I'll listen to Qin Youjiao stared at Qin Yu and Bei Yunj's backs in disbelief. Her shoulders trembled slightly as a sense of humiliation grew stronger. How could this be? Her brothers had clearly been indifferent to Bei Yunj before, but now her second and third brothers were clearly in love with Bei Yunj. Youjiao? Lu Yuanxi, who was behind her, thought that Qin Youjiao was crying and came up to look at her. Oh, it's student Lu. Qin Youjiao's eyes were slightly red as she said, Thank you for today. I didn't think that I would faint. Did something happen to you? I've never seen you like this before. Qin Youjiao bit her lip, unwillingness hidden in her eyes. Is it that no matter how outstanding I become, I can't be compared to Bei Yunj? At first, Qin Youjiao hoped that Lu Yuanxi could comfort her. However, Lu Yuanxi thought for a while. She's different. P.S. It's a little laggy. There's still one more chapter to go. There are at least 5 chapters today. Good girls, remember to vote. Chapter 93. Hearing this, Qin Youjiao's expression froze. What's different? Lu Yuanxi chuckled and glanced at Bei Yunj's departing figure. Don't you think that she's very attractive even when she's angry? Instantly, Qin Youjiao's expression darkened even more. She knew that Lu Yuanxi had a good impression of strong and independent girls, but she didn't expect his evaluation of Bei Yunj to break his inherent principles. In the past, Lu Yuanxi hated girls who caused trouble the most. Bei Yunj sat in the front passenger seat, playing with her phone with her head lowered. Soon, Qin Yu's phone rang. He glanced at the caller ID on the screen and suddenly became interested. This was the first time this master had taken the initiative to call him. How rare. Qin Yu put on his Bluetooth and answered the call very quickly. He asked lazily, What happened? I didn't expect you to call me one day. The man's tone was indifferent and he said carelessly, Yun Nua came to the company to look for you. Qin Yu's smile froze. Wasn't this woman too persistent? But then, he said slowly, she knows which restaurant you're going to. If you're afraid of something happening, you can go to the restaurant under the Hua Corporation. Hearing this, Qin Yu was immediately filled with gratitude towards Hushidu. He didn't expect Master Du to still care about him. Qin Yu smiled politely. In that case, I'll thank you first. Are you free today? My sister and I are going to eat together. If you're free. Sure. The man's light voice sounded neither too fast nor too slow. Qin Yu froze, ? Master Du couldn't tell that he was being polite to him? It was his first time going out for a meal with Gu. Did he look like he wanted someone to disturb them? Qin Yu took a deep breath and smiled insincerely. Is that so? All right, we haven't eaten together for a long time. After hanging up the call, Qin Yu tried his best to calm down. Master Du wouldn't do such an embarrassing thing on purpose. He probably thought that he was inviting him warmly. Gu, do you mind if there's another person eating with us? Qin Yu turned his head and asked carefully. He did not expect Hushidu to agree so readily. In the past, no matter how he asked Hushidu to go out with him, Hushidu had ignored him. Anything is fine, Bei Yunj said. Hearing this, Qin Yu heaved a sigh of relief. However, Qin Yu suddenly remembered something. Wasn't Gu staying with Master Du? These two must know each other. Qin Yu thought for a moment and asked implicitly, Gu, are you used to living here now? Not bad. Bei Yunj responded. That's good, that's good. Qin Yu coughed softly. He did not know if Hushidu had told Gu that he was the one who asked him to take care of Gu. If Gu thought that the two of them had colluded to deceive her, then it would really be over. At this thought, Qin Yu became even more nervous. He didn't know how to mention this to Bei Yunj. Until they got out of the car. Qin Yu brought Bei Yunj into a restaurant and was welcomed into a private room. After the waiter pushed open the door of the private room, he found that a handsome and dignified man was already sitting inside. Qin Yu was perplexed. Wasn't this too fast? He thought that Master Du would be late, then, Bei Yunj's sudden words made Qin Yu stiffen even more. Brother? Qin Yu looked at Bei Yunj. Who was Gu calling? Chapter 94. Then. To Qin Yu's disbelief, after the man beside him casually unbuttoned 2 buttons on his collar, he replied calmly and casually. Qin Yu was speechless. Master Du, do you know what you're responding to? Within moments. Bei Yunj glanced at Qin Yu and then at Hushidu. She seemed to have suddenly understood what was going on. It turned out that the two of them already knew each other. That was why Hushidu had brought her back then. Gu, you, Qin Yu turned to look at Bei Yunj. Before he could finish asking, he saw Bei Yunj's faint smile and immediately shut up. I see. Bei Yunj's eyes were curled up and her tone was the same as usual, but it inexplicably made Qin Yu panic even more. It was over. Gu was definitely angry. At this moment, Bei Yunj did not say anything and only chose a seat at the side to sit down. Her bright and beautiful face was calm. She said, let's eat first. Okay. Qin Yu nodded and sat beside Bei Yunj nervously. He could not help but glance at her secretly. This action also made Hushidu, who was beside him, glance at him carelessly. After the dishes were served, Bei Yunj glanced at the dishes. They were all her usual favorites. Gu, try this. It's definitely delicious. Qin Yu kept putting food into Bei Yunj's bowl. And this too. Within a few minutes, Bei Yunj's bowl was filled. The corners of her lips twitched and she was about to say something when she heard the man beside her say lazily. Qin Yu, do you want to consider working part-time in my restaurant? With that said, not long after, Qin Yu regained his senses. This meant that he looked like a waiter in a restaurant. Qin Yu was speechless. I'm going to the washroom. Bei Yunj suddenly got up and walked out of the room after saying this. Seeing this, Qin Yu was even more frightened. He was worried and looked at Huashidu. Gu is angry. Master Du, what should we do? What should we do? You want to know? Huashidu loosened the collar of his shirt, and his cold white neckline touched his firm and sexy chest. His posture was lazy and light. He lifted his thin eyelids, and the corners of his upturned eyes were seductive. Let's leave early after this meal. Why did he have the guts to say that his sister had become his? Qin Yu couldn't help asking, what about you? The corners of Huashidu's thin red lips curled up. His low and magnetic voice made people blush and their hearts race. He was frivolous and ostentatious. Me? Let's discuss it with the little girl and see if it's okay. Listen to Yen. Qin Yu was stunned for a moment before he felt touched again. This was a true brother. He really did not expect that Master Du would actually lower himself to coax a little girl for the sake of his brother. She had misunderstood him in the past. Qin Yu felt guilty for a while before he reminded her, okay. Master Du, if you really can't come to an agreement, don't be angry. It's normal for girls to have a bit of temper. He was also a little afraid. With Huashidu's temper, if he was provoked by Gu, it would be like provoking the king of hell. Why don't you leave now? Huashidu asked slowly. Qin Yu, after Bei Yunj returned, Huashidu was the only one left in the room. She raised an eyebrow and walked to the dining table, asking, where is he? Huashidu's slender fingers were stained with red oil as he slowly peeled the prawn shell. It looked pleasing to the eye. Chapter 95. Bei Yunj glanced at him and did not move. Who knew, in the next moment, the man's unwavering gaze landed on her. His eyes were so dark that they could not be seen clearly. Suddenly, he chuckled softly. His lazy voice was low and magnetic, blatantly seductive. Brother's hands are covered in oil. Do you still need brother to carry you? Bei Yunj, not long after. Bei Yunj sat beside Huashidu. She held her chopsticks and ate her rice without saying a word. Huashidu glanced at her. Yun. She said, don't talk when you eat. Not long after. Bei Yunj heard the man chuckle happily again. He said without blushing, if Yun eats more, brother will have to charge you. Bei Yunj looked at Huashidu and suddenly laughed. Her tone was ambiguous. Brother charges a lot, right? However, the man curled his thin lips slowly and reached out his hand frivolously. His cold fingers were stained with red oil as he deliberately rubbed them against her lips. His lazy and sexy appearance was ostentatious and ambiguous. This is the first time brother charges. Do you want to try? Bei Yunj, she should not have said so much to him. She took a deep breath without batting an eyelid and wiped the red oil off her lips expressionlessly. She turned around and planned to continue eating. Then, before she could lower her head, a slender and good-looking hand beside her placed the peeled prawn meat in her bowl. The man's magnetic voice was filled with a smile as it echoed in Bei Yunj's ear. It was hopelessly sexy. Brother is joking. I just want Yun to talk to brother. If Yun likes it, brother will bring Yun here every day in the future. Okay, Yun, don't be angry with brother. The man's pleasant voice had a certain level of seduction that was hard to reject. However, when Bei Yunj heard this, she only glanced at Huashidu and smiled at him before continuing to eat. Seeing this, Huashidu was not in a hurry. The corners of his lips curled up as he slowly peeled the prawn shell. From time to time, he would feed the girl beside him who was not easy to coax. It was as if he was coaxing his little ancestor. The man suddenly had this thought. He couldn't help chuckling and glanced at Bei Yunj playfully. Bei Yunj was so engrossed in eating that he didn't notice the expressions of the people around him. After leaving the restaurant, Bei Yunj sat in the front passenger seat and focused on playing with her phone. Suddenly, his phone vibrated. Huashidu, who was beside her, suddenly said casually, "Yun Yun, take a look at the news for me." Bei Yunj glanced at him and picked up Huashidu's phone. She heard him say a string of passwords. She clicked on the message and read it aloud. She waited for the man to let out a soft hum before putting the phone back. Through the rearview mirror, he glanced at the cold-looking young lady beside him and unconsciously curled his lips. "Thank you, Yun Yun." The little girl was indeed very vengeful. Bei Yunj lowered her head and nodded. She was about to continue playing with her phone. Huashidu, who was beside her, suddenly took out a few candies from the side and opened the candy wrapper with one hand. "Yun Yun." Huashidu called out leisurely. Hearing this, Bei Yunj instinctively turned her head. Just as she was about to say something, she was suddenly fed a piece of candy. The strawberry-flavored milk candy was soft and sweet as it slowly melted between her lips and teeth. Bei Yunj was speechless. After that, before Bei Yunj could do anything, she heard the man say slowly, "Yun Yun, if you don't give me face, the things in my trunk are all prepared for you. P.S. There will be 2 more updates later." Chapter 96. He chuckled happily and glanced at her seductively. "No one can snatch you from our union." Bei Yunj was speechless. A few seconds later, Bei Yunj was still chewing on the candy as she turned back to look ahead. Huashidu asked when he saw that the girl beside him was slowly in a better mood after eating the candy. "Are you very angry?" "A little," she said honestly. Bei Yunj had never associated Qin Yu with Huashidu. Hence, when she saw him today, she indeed felt like she had been deceived. After Huashidu glanced at Bei Yunj through the rearview mirror, he could not help but smile, but his eyes were filled with indulgence. After getting out of the car, Huashidu had just parked the car when he saw Bei Yunj about to turn around and walk home. He took a few steps forward with his long legs and grabbed Bei Yunj's wrist, pulling her back. At this moment, the moment Bei Yunj turned around, she saw the man suddenly approaching her. His eyes were even darker and his magnetic and lazy voice made the wind by her ears flutter. "Do you have a conscience, child? Are you really going to ignore me?" Bei Yunj froze for a moment. After that, Huashidu bent his long legs and knelt on one knee. His warm and dry palm was still holding her wrist. The man looked up at her, his pale-colored eyes smiling carelessly as he coaxed her intimately and naturally. "Yun Yun?" His voice was dragged out and the corners of his upturned eyes were even more seductive. His low and indulgent tone was so ambiguous that it made one's heart race. "Can I beg for mercy?" This scene was so suave that it made people unable to control themselves. Even Bei Yunj's heart almost skipped a beat. Wasn't this man too good at coaxing people? Huashidu did not explain anything just now. He only said that they had met by chance at the hospital and bar. However, he did agree to Qin Yu's request later on. Hearing this, Bei Yunj's anger had already subsided. After all, she was not someone who would cause trouble for herself. The two of them returned to the hall. The man handed the paper bag to Bei Yunj. "Qin Yu left it behind just now." Bei Yunj looked at the bear in the paper bag, and her eyes twitched uncontrollably. Seeing that she did not take it, Huashidu chuckled. "Do you dislike it that much?" "Not really." Bei Yunj mentally prepared herself and took the paper bag and the teddy bear in it. "It's just not very suitable." Hearing this, the man chuckled and looked at her with interest. "Qin Yu knows that you have insomnia. He said, you like to hug this to sleep." Bei Yunj, nonsense. However, when Huashidu saw this, he playfully scratched Bei Yunj's chin and smiled happily and frivolously. "Don't worry, Yun Yun. I will pretend that I didn't see anything. No one will laugh at Yun Yun." Bei Yunj smiled at him. "Brother, you're smiling. I see." The man's eyes were clear and cold, but at this moment, he lowered his voice and laughed. His posture was lazy and sexy. But brother will smile whenever he sees Yunyun. Bei Yunj was speechless. Soon, Bei Yunj went upstairs with this teddy bear that did not match her aura. Sitting by the bed, Bei Yunj looked at the bear she had placed on the bedside table. Actually, the teddy bear was quite cute. Its brown and soft short fur made people want to touch it. It was silly and cute. Bei Yunj's eyebrows moved. Then, she looked away and tried her best to ignore it. At the same time, there was also a storm of blood online. Because Qin Yu was involved in the topic, the top 3 headlines were all occupied. P.S. I owe you an update and will publish it at noon at the latest. Old Sue was even more unhappy. For example, this chapter took more than 2 hours to write. However, he would return what he owed and would not go back on his word. Chapter 97. Hashtag Qin Yu, second young master of the Qin family. Hashtag Qin Yu picking someone up. Hashtag Qin Yu hugging. Hashtag. The first 3 terms all avoided Bei Yunj's name, as if they were afraid of repeating the same mistake. It was enough to see how hard everyone was working online. However, because the development of reality was too far from their imagination, there was a lot of discussion. Did I just get online? Qin Yu is the second young master of the Qin family? Sob, he's indeed a man who doesn't work hard and wants to go home to inherit the family assets. Didn't they say that the Qin brothers are all around Qin Youjiao? I don't think this photo looks like it. I don't know anything else. It said that the bear in Brother Yu's hand was given to Miss Pei and was cruelly rejected. Miss Pei is such a ruthless woman, ha ha ha. Ha 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 ha, I know how to answer this question. Brother Yu even said that the bear wants to protect his little princess. This is my first time seeing this D*MN man flirt. How strange. Am I the only one who paid attention to Miss Pei's face? F***CK, she can debut with her face. Sister, I can. Let's be honest. Some time ago, Miss Pei was exposed by a certain fan and was crazily comparing her to a certain princess. It's obvious that it's malicious. TSK, what a good dog of the main character. The topic of the Qin siblings was very popular. What made people want to laugh even more was that everyone online was afraid of them and didn't even dare to mention the words Bei Yunj. However, there were also some fans who were still angry and started to mock and ridicule them. Jiao Jiao is practicing the piano and Mrs. Qin is accompanying her. Don't cue little Princess Qin. Everyone should pay more attention to the work in my Jiao Jiao's tour. Some people are really funny. When our Jiao Jiao fans speak, they are malicious. If we don't speak, we can't win. In the comments section. Let go of my Jiao Jiao. My Jiao Jiao doesn't fight for anything and relies on her abilities to attract fans. Don't spread rumors about the relationship between siblings. Who doesn't love little fairy Jiao Jiao? How doted can a newcomer be? Besides, if it was me, I would prefer a talented sister like Qin Youjiao. In less than half an hour, Qin Youjiao's fans and passers-by started to control the comments. They even tried to pull Qin Yu's fans into a united front. However, Qin Yu's fans were smart. After all, they were both Qin Yu's sisters. There was no need for them to get involved in this mess. So, gradually. Because Bei Yunj didn't have a fan base on the internet, Qin Youjiao's fans soon filled the internet with comments and mocked Bei Yunj. However, in the end, to everyone's disbelief, in less than an hour, all the posts about Bei Yunj were deleted. Everyone was shocked. Is Bei Yunj the daughter of this social media app? In the past, which artist or amateur had the system help to delete the post after it was put on the headlines? A few days ago, the social media app publicly apologized, saying that there was a problem with the system. What about this time? Every time there's a problem, it's to help Bei Yunj delete the posts. Did he think they had cerebral palsy? Many people felt indignant and directly at the software administrator, hoping for an explanation. But in the end, no matter how many messages they left, those administrators seemed to be selectively blind. None of them replied. The internet was in full swing and Pei Yunj tossed and turned, unable to fall asleep. In the end, Pei Yunj couldn't help but lift the quilt. She went out to get a glass of warm water and returned to the room. A few minutes later, Pei Yunj and the teddy bear on the bedside table looked at each other. Chapter 98. Because Wuxia had not entered this bedroom for a long time, his scent in the room was much fainter. Pei Yunj also gradually felt that the quality of her sleep was decreasing. In fact, in the middle of the night, she even believed Qin Yu's words. The little bear helped her sleep. Pei Yunj looked at the little bear on the bedside table and her mind gradually emptied. Should she take it? This stupid bear seemed to be quite cute. However, moments later, Pei Yunj suddenly realized that she was having some delirious thoughts. I'm going crazy. There was some impatience in her bright eyes as she placed the glass of water in her hand on the table. Taking a few steps forward, Pei Yunj lifted the blanket and fell asleep on the bed. 10 minutes later, under the light gray blanket, a cold and fair wrist reached out and grabbed the little bear's little hand accurately, pulling it into the blanket. The next day, Pei Yunj was in good spirits. After washing up, she was ready to go downstairs. However, she did not expect Stephen to call her at this moment. After Pei Yunj answered the call, she asked, Mr. Stephen, what's wrong? Did something happen? Miss Pei. It's like this. I might not be able to leave our nation for the next few days. Your grandfather's surgery might have to be delayed for a while. After Stephen finished speaking, the person on the other end of the line did not speak. He immediately panicked. Miss Pei, I'm really sorry. Something happened in our medical institute, so we were forcefully banned from leaving. What's wrong? Pei Yunj asked. Stephen took a deep breath and said, unreasonable patients are the most troublesome to doctors no matter where they are. Pei Yunj roughly heard the reason from Stephen. Actually, it was just a patient with status. He was weak to begin with and did not listen to the doctor's strict preoperative rules. As a result, the surgery failed in the end. In a fit of anger, the family deliberately blew up the matter. It attracted public opinion from all walks of life, causing their medical institute to be suspended. Pei Yunj asked, can you solve it? Of course. Stephen chuckled. This isn't the first time this has happened, but it's indeed more serious than before. I dislocated that family member's arm and he's still lying in the hospital. No wonder he was forbidden from going out. But don't worry, Miss Pei. Your grandfather's physique is much better than his peers. I'll go to your place as soon as possible. I won't let anything happen to your grandfather. Thank you. Pei Yunj responded. After the conversation, Pei Yunj hung up the phone and prepared to go downstairs for dinner. Miss Yunj, good morning. The moment Aunt Miao saw Pei Yunj, her gaze became overly gentle. Pei Yunj did not notice the way she was looking at her young madam. She sat at the dining table and asked, Auntie Miao, is this your new dish? Yes, it's very refreshing. Mr. Hua said that you would definitely like it, so he asked me to prepare it especially for you. Aunt Miao chuckled. Where's my brother? Pei Yunj noticed that Wuxia had not had breakfast with her for the past 2 days. You're busy with the company. Before you came, Mr. Hua rarely ate at home. Aunt Miao scooped a bowl of porridge for Pei Yunj and said to herself. Hearing this, Pei Yunj's eyes darkened, but she didn't say anything. Last night, Pei Yunj received a notice from the school. Today, the top computing institute in the country was going to visit Hengda High School at noon and ask them to pay attention to their attire. Chapter 99. Cheng Zihuai and Qin Youjiao appeared at the door. The students who had entered the school could not help but steal glances at the handsome man and beautiful woman with envious expressions. This couple was simply the face of the school. A good-looking top student. Suddenly, the dean at the side noticed Pei Yunj and a trace of disgust flashed past his eyes before he glanced at his watch. Pei Yunj, do you know what time it is? Is your watch broken? Bei Yunj asked casually and left. Instantly, the dean's face darkened and the taste of blood surged in his throat. He had been teaching for more than 10 years and had never met a student as difficult to discipline as Bei Yunj. This scene was also seen by Cheng Zihuai and Qin Youjiao. Qin Youjiao looked at Cheng Zihuai secretly. Seeing that his face was expressionless and his eyes were filled with ridicule and disdain, she heaved a sigh of relief. Then, Cheng Zihuai sneered disdainfully. How can the Qin family like such a person? Jiao Jiao, she's not even qualified to compare to you. With that said, Cheng Zihuai did not want to waste time on Bei Yunj. Instead, he returned to class first and planned to study the computing book written by old Mr. Zhong. After all, Zhong Xinglin was the only person in the country who could be as famous as Marcus from our nation in the computing field. However, Cheng Zihuai was also in disbelief. He did not expect the A.M. Institute of Computing Technology, which had always been low-key and cold, to come to their high school. What a pleasant surprise. In Class 7's classroom. It was only then that Bei Yunj realized that there was no one in the class. It seemed like everyone had gone to the conference room. It should be for the A.M. Institute of Computing. She raised an eyebrow. She did not expect everyone to be so positive about the A.M. Institute of Computing. Then, just as Bei Yunj put down her bag and was about to leave, her phone rang. It was a call from Marcus. Bei Yunj's beautiful eyes moved, but she answered the call. What's wrong? Goober, did that old man Zhong Xinglin go to your school? Marcus was furious. He did not expect this Zhong Xinglin to be so shameless. In order to poach his members, he even went to the high school to look for them. Maybe. I heard that the A.M. Computing Institute is here. Bei Yunj thought for a moment. He will definitely come. This old man was really good at poaching people. When you see that strange old man later, you must ignore him. Marcus couldn't suppress his anger, but the next second, Bei Yunj heard Marcus say pitifully, I'm sorry. We just signed the contract. You should at least finish what's in the bowl before looking at what's in the pot. Our institute is much more generous than A.M. Bei Yunj. I don't plan to join A.M., that's good. Marcus heaved a long sigh of relief and said, by the way, we have a habit of taking care of interns. According to the rules, you can choose 2 interns to help. Intern? Bei Yunj's eyebrows twitched unconsciously, and then the corners of her eyes slowly curled up. In his previous life, Bei Yunj almost took care of students in school, but she was vetoed by her mother. She could only fish in troubled waters in school and do scientific research. However, Mother Pei could not be blamed for being ruthless. As early as when Bei Yunj was 14 years old, she was famous for being difficult to restrain. She remembered that once, the son of the dean next door had secretly lifted the skirt of Bei Yunj's desk mate and made the little girl cry in anger. Chapter 100. After finding out about this, Mrs. Pei brought Bei Yunj to apologize to the director. After all, it was wrong to hang someone on a tree. However, when the director found out that Bei Yunj was the one who had punished his son, he immediately went home with a black face and punished his son. If that girl, Bei Yunj, injured her head, this brat could go and meet his ancestors too. After this incident, Mrs. Pei realized that the teachers in the school treated Bei Yunj like a treasure and spoiled her to the point where she could do whatever she wanted. If Bei Yunj continued to teach students, wouldn't she be leading them astray? However, it was obvious that Marcus was very confident in Bei Yunj. He even chuckled. Yes, don't worry. The interns are all postgraduate students in our nation. They won't cause you any trouble. However, can I ask you for a favor? What is it? Bei Yunj raised her eyebrows. I have a little niece who is also in Yuncheng. She is a computer science student at Yuncheng University. Can you help me teach her when you have time? Marcus was a little nervous. After all, Bei Yunj had rejected the young master of the Qing family in Yuncheng without even looking at him. You want me to teach your little niece? Bei Yunj raised her eyebrows. This little brat is usually very fierce. She always throws tantrums at me and refuses to learn from me. Upon hearing this, Bei Yunj smiled faintly. Marcus, do you think I have a good temper? It was indeed too dangerous to put 2 barrels of gunpowder together. Suddenly, Marcus thought of a compromise. His eyes lit up. If she is willing to learn from you, can you teach her? Okay. Bei Yunj said casually. She had troubled Marcus so much. It was okay for her to teach a student for Marcus. Marcus heaved a sigh of relief when he heard this. After hanging up the phone, Bei Yunj had just left the classroom when she stopped in her tracks. She lowered her head and saw a spot of blood on the ground. Her gaze turned gloomy and she slowed down her footsteps again. When she reached the corridor by the stairs, Bei Yunj heard some movement. Her eyes flashed and she walked closer to the source of the sound. At the end of the long corridor. Fatty, you're still smoking? I didn't expect that. The boy's ear-piercing voice. He was up to no good. Bei Yunj looked up and saw a familiar figure. Chu Zhixing's face was bruised and swollen. He protected the things in his pocket and gasped for air. He was drenched in cold sweat. What are you protecting? Take it out. The boy stepped forward, grabbed Chu Zhixing's hair, and slammed him against the wall. He then went to snatch the things in his pocket. But he realized it was just a hair tie. However, those who knew about luxury goods would realize that the price of this rubber band was 3,000 to 4,000 yuan on the official website. Hair. Damn Fatty, you can't be thinking of giving it to some girl, right? With your looks, which girl would accept your rubber band? The boy mocked him. These words made Chu Zhixing purse his lips. His voice was a little hoarse. It's none of your business. Oh, you're tough now? Chu Zhixing, have you forgotten how you spent your junior high school days? The boy approached Chu Zhixing and laughed cruelly and deliberately in his ear. You're the dog I can hit if I want to. Even if you get into Hengda, I can still deal with you. These words made Chu Zhixing's eyes turn red. He recalled how this boy tortured him in junior high school. Chapter 101. Seeing Chu Zhixing's humiliated look, the boy casually threw the rubber band away. Hu Ji. Chu Zhixing seemed to have reached the point of anger. He looked at him fiercely and his entire body was trembling. It's useless to you even if you keep it. Also, I'll ask you again, do you have money? Hu Ji grabbed Chu Zhixing's collar and smiled brightly, but he was doing cruel things. Suddenly, a clear voice sounded from the side. The rubber band looks pretty good. Bei Yunj held the rubber band and looked at it. When Hu Ji heard the voice, he subconsciously turned his head. When he saw Bei Yunj's face clearly, his eyes were filled with infatuation. But soon, a smile appeared on his face and he pretended to be generous. You like it? Then I'll give it to you. Bei Yunj walked to Chu Zhixing's side and teased him with a smile. Little Chu, are you giving it to me? Yes, Chu Zhixing subconsciously said in a low voice. Thank you. Bei Yunj put the rubber band on her slender white wrist and lazily curved her beautiful eyes. She had no idea how expensive this rubber band was. At this moment, the scene of Bei Yunj talking to Chu Zhixing as if she didn't see it made Hu Ji's face darken, as if he had been humiliated. Such a beautiful girl. So you know her, Chu Zhixing. Hu Ji sneered and turned to look at Chu Zhixing. Why don't you introduce her to me? As soon as he finished speaking, Chu Zhixing suddenly raised his head and stared at Hu Ji. His heart was filled with anger. In fact, before junior high school, Chu Zhixing wasn't so fat and was still very popular with girls. But it wasn't until he was diagnosed with an illness and began to be injected with medicine that he began to gain weight. Then, after entering junior high school, he became isolated. Because he was antisocial and too fat. And this boy was the one who took the lead to tease him. However, because Hu Ji's grades weren't good and his family's conditions weren't good, he dropped out of school very early. Suddenly, Bei Yunja's red lips curled up. Chu Zhixing, can you protect me? Hearing this, Chu Zhixing's body froze. But before she could think, she saw Hu Ji reach out to touch Bei Yunja's face. Bei Yunja's posture was relaxed. She didn't move, but her beautiful eyes were slightly raised. His hand was about to touch Bei Yunja's face. In an instant, Chu Zhixing's mind exploded. He pounced forward and fiercely punched Hu Ji, causing him to groan in pain. Chu Zhixing, are you King looking for death? This was the first time Hu Ji had been hit by Chu Zhixing. His eyes were filled with disbelief and anger. But in the next moment, Chu Zhixing grabbed him by the collar. His deep eyes were filled with hostility as he punched him with all his might. Hu Ji didn't have the strength to resist at all. He was in so much pain that his whole body was trembling. His brows were tightly furrowed, and fear gradually appeared in his eyes. Was this Chu Zhixing crazy? After reacting, Hu Ji was afraid. Chu Zhixing, I was wrong. I won't bother you anymore. Can you let me go? Chu Zhixing's movements suddenly stopped. But in the next moment, his cold voice sounded in Hu Ji's ears, making his scalp tingle. Whoever touches her will die. After saying that, Chu Zhixing held his neck and pressed him against the wall. Then, he punched Hu Ji's abdomen fiercely again. Hu Ji was in despair. A thought appeared in his mind. If this continued, he would die at the hands of this madman sooner or later. He really didn't expect Chu Zhixing to have such a side to him. Chapter 102. Chu. Every time Hu Ji wanted to speak, he was beaten by Chu Zhixing until he howled in pain. Not long after, Hu Ji was lying on the ground on the verge of death. Seeing this, Bei Yunj was about to step forward when she saw Chu Zhixing suddenly lose his balance and faint. Before Chu Zhixing fainted, Bei Yunj held him up. Seeing that Chu Zhixing's face was slightly pale, but he didn't look like he was in pain, she first helped him sit on the ground. When Hu Ji saw Chu Zhixing faint, he sneered and forced himself to stand up. His eyes were filled with coldness and hatred. Damn fatty, how dare you hit me? See if I don't teach you a lesson. Suddenly, before Hu Ji could finish speaking, he saw the girl, who was not aggressive at all just now, turn her eyes to him. In the depths of her beautiful eyes, there was a coldness that made one's back turn cold. Bei Yunj stood up and walked towards him. She directly grabbed Hu Ji's hair and dragged him inside. Her smile was too beautiful, and the danger in her eyes grew. Was this how you dragged him just now? Hu Ji was in so much pain that his scalp was about to be torn off. He suddenly realized that this girl was the devil. Bei Yunj threw him to the ground and stepped on his chest. The strength of her foot gradually increased. It made Hu Ji feel that his ribs were about to be broken by her. It was so painful that he couldn't think. The veins on his forehead bulged, and his body broke out in cold sweat. At this moment, Bei Yunj bent down and patted his face. Are you that powerful, classmate? Did you bully our little Chu all day long in the past? The girl's voice was casual and clear, but in Hu Ji's ears, it was like a death sentence. Ear-piercing screams of pain sounded in the corridor. When Bei Yunj was about to stop, the dean's angry voice sounded from the side. Bei Yunj, what are you doing? He quickly walked in front of Bei Yunj, as if he could finally find trouble with Bei Yunj. Hitting someone in school. Let's see how this Bei Yunj can quibble this time. Unexpectedly, Bei Yunj glanced at him and chuckled. Her eyes were bright and unbridled, and her tone was full of mockery. Fight? What am I doing? For a moment, the dean's face turned red and he was speechless. He looked at Bei Yunj in disbelief. Punishment or reflection, teacher? Bei Yunj asked slowly. The dean laughed coldly. Now that he had gotten hold of Bei Yunj's weakness, he would not let it go. Punishment or self-criticism? I'm telling you, back off. Halfway through his words, another voice suddenly sounded. Bei Yunj? Come here and help me move the materials. This was the physics teacher, Zhao Yi, who had previously made Bei Yunj copy as a punishment. The dean's face darkened. Teacher Zhao, this student got into a fight in school and is lying on the ground. When teacher Zhao Yi heard this, he walked closer and looked at Hu Ji on the ground. Then, he asked Bei Yunj, are you that good? Bei Yunj smiled modestly. It's all right. When the dean heard this conversation, his face was so dark that it could drip ink. Teacher Zhao Yi. If it weren't for teacher Zhao Yi's high teaching standards and was especially liked by the principal, he would have scolded him if he was a new teacher. What's going on with Chu Zhixing? Teacher Zhao Yi was still talking, but when he saw that his student, Chu Zhixing, had fainted, he immediately called 120. The dean's face was ugly, and he didn't know what to say for a moment. Chapter 103. Bei Yunj, do you really think that you can be the daughter of a wealthy family in peace just because you've been acknowledged as one? The dean laughed coldly. We're both from the same family. Don't you think you're too different from Qinyo Jiao? With that said, Bei Yunj slowly looked up and stared at him with an unreadable gaze. Bei Yunj is very smart. Zhao Yi, who was in the same office, could not help saying. Teacher Zhao Yi. The dean's expression was dark as he looked at Zhao Yi. I don't know why you chose her to be your class representative. But Bei Yunj has only been in school for a short while and she's already caused so much trouble. Look at her actions. She's clearly rotten to the core. When she enters society in the future, she'll be the scum of society. Instantly, Zhao Yi's expression darkened. Dean, do you know what you're saying? The dean had long been unhappy with Zhao Yi and his tone was cold. Teacher Zhao, since you're only a teacher, there are some things that you don't have to care about. With that said, before Zhao Yi could continue speaking, the principal's voice sounded from outside the door. What the hell is going on? Why did an ambulance come to our school? The principal rushed over from the lecture hall to understand the situation. Seeing this, the dean took the opportunity to complain. Principal, Bei Yunj from Year 2 Class 7 has repeatedly hit people in school. This time, she even beats someone up until there's not a single piece of skin on them. Hearing Bei Yunj's name, the principal's expression darkened even more. Her again? Why was she the one who committed all the crimes? This was even more frequent than Lu Yuanci. However, the principal glanced at the Computing Institute members who had followed him. After seeing Qing Zihuai and Qin Youjiao, he could only take a deep breath. Okay, this matter will be investigated clearly. I'll arrange for someone to get the video. As for Bei Yunj, stay here and wait. With that said, the principal greeted the slightly older man beside him and turned to leave the office. If he had known that Bei Yunj was so ignorant and incompetent, he would not have let Bei Yunj step into Hengda even if he did not want the building donated by the Qin family. Now, Bei Yunj was causing trouble and was seen by one of the top computing companies in the country. What an embarrassment to Hengda. After the principal left, the office was silent. The dean glanced coldly at Bei Yunj and returned to his seat. The young man walked up to Zhong Xinglin and looked at Bei Yunj curiously. Is she Bei Yunj? Who would have thought that their first meeting would be so awkward? Zhong Xinglin was also a little hesitant. Are you Bei Yunj? Hearing this, Bei Yunj turned her face to the side. She was beautiful and eye-catching. She raised her eyebrows lazily and looked unruly. She pulled on her name tag but did not say anything. Zhong Xinglin lowered his gaze and looked over. Senior 2 Class 7, Bei Yunj. He really didn't find the wrong person. At this moment. Seeing this, Qing Zihuai and Qin Youjiao could not help feeling suffocated. How did a person like Zhong Xinglin know Bei Yunj? With Bei Yunj's status, she would not be able to reach old Mr. Zhong even if she had 100 steps. Suddenly, Qing Zihuai's tone was sharp. Bei Yunj, don't you like computing too? Have you read Marcus books? Don't tell me you don't know Mr. Zhong Xinglin. Bei Yunj, who was already in a bad mood, did not stand on ceremony when she saw someone asking for trouble. She sneered lazily. Student Cheng, you seem to know everyone. Are you a social butterfly? Chapter 104. Instantly. The atmosphere fell into a strange silence. Qing Zihuai's face turned green and red. He wished he could break Bei Yunja's neck on the spot. The young man coughed lightly. He didn't expect Miss Pei's personality to be so unique. However, this was really similar to the big boss who helped Bei Yunj collapse the headlines. Suddenly, just as Qing Zihuai's face was gloomy, Zhong Xinglin suddenly smiled and asked, Student Pei likes computers very much? Coincidentally, we are recruiting students for internships during this period of time. Student Pei, are you willing to come? Zhong Xinglin only treated Bei Yunj as an interesting student with a temper. However, when the others heard this, they were in disbelief. AM was the top computer technology research institute in the country. The interns they usually recruited were also the top graduate students in the country. However, what could an ignorant and incompetent person like Bei Yunj do if she went in? Mr. Zhong, didn't you say that there was only one spot for a student from Hengda? Are you planning to give it to Bei Yunj? Qin Youjiao's expression didn't look good either. She could only ask tentatively. Qing Zihuai's face was ashen as he clenched his fists. It's fine. Student Pei and I are fated. Zhong Xinglin smiled. He came today for Bei Yunj. He wanted to know who the person who helped Bei Yunj was. As for this person called Qing Zihuai, he was indeed alright, but he didn't like him. He'd better wait a few more years. I'm sorry, Mr. Zhong. I might not be free. Bei Yunj smiled. She had a good impression of Zhong Xinglin. Are you very busy with your studies? Yes, my grades are at the bottom. Someone at home insisted that I take remedial classes on the weekends. Bei Yunj curled her lips. Hearing this, the young man beside her couldn't help but look at Bei Yunj in shock. Remedial classes on the weekends and her grades were at the bottom? What kind of standard was this? After coming back to his senses, the young man immediately pulled Zhong Xinglin back. Old master, don't delay the girl's college entrance examination. Although this girl was related to that big shot to a certain extent. But even in their computing institute, no one could bring up such a result. Zhong Xinglin felt an inexplicable sense of regret. He felt an indescribable sense of loss. Then, if Student Pei is interested, you can contact me in the future. After that, the elegant and gentle old man took out a brand new business card from his pocket and handed it to Bei Yunj. Seeing this, the head of teaching, who had been watching from the side, widened his eyes. Just now, Mr. Zhong didn't even give his name card to the principal. The person they contacted had always been Mr. Zhong's assistant. But now, old Mr. Zhong had personally handed his business card to Bei Yunj. If it were anyone else, they would be able to brag about it for the rest of their lives. This was Zhong Xinglin, the first winner of the Busaka Computer Award in China. He was also a leading figure in the field of computing, a legend in the hearts of the younger generation of researchers. The expressions of the dean, Qing Zihuai, and Qin Youjiao beside him were especially ugly. Qin Youjiao's face contorted and gradually turned hideous. What right did this Bei Yunj have? Even old Mr. Zhong was so good to her for no reason. In front of everyone, Bei Yunj wouldn't reject Zhong Xinglin's good intentions. She nodded. Thank you, old Mr. Zhong. It's all right. You can bring your friends here to play when you're free in the future. Zhong Xinglin smiled, completely like a kind grandfather next door. Chapter 105. Haha. He knew very well whether he hoped that Bei Yunj would bring a friend or a big shot. Seeing that Zhong Xinglin seemed to be very interested in Bei Yunj and kept looking for topics to chat about, Cheng Ziwai's handsome face darkened. He clenched his fists tightly and his eyes were cold. Bei Yunj was really lucky. It was only the first time they met, but old Master Zhong was actually willing to accept Bei Yunj into the computing institute without even considering him. Not long after, the principal returned with an extremely bad expression, but he did not say much. He only told Bei Yunj to pay more attention to her image and to look for the teacher if she had any problems. It was indeed not appropriate to talk about this in front of Zhong Xinglin and the others. He had checked the video. The boy who was beaten looked unfamiliar and was not a student of Hengda. When he appeared at the entrance of the corridor, he was grabbing Chu Zhixing's clothes, and Chu Zhixing was injured. After that, the two of them entered the surveillance blind spot. They did not even need to think to know what the boy was doing to Chu Zhixing. However, what was even more surprising was, not long after, Bei Yunj appeared. She also entered the surveillance blind spot, and they did not know what was going on inside. But about 10 minutes later, the boy was grabbed by the hair by Bei Yunj and suddenly appeared in the surveillance area. He was pinned down by Bei Yunj and taught him a lesson. Her methods were so ruthless that even a middle-aged man like him who had seen the world felt his scalp go numb. However, when they heard the principal say that this matter was resolved just like that, many people felt uncomfortable. The dean of teaching widened his eyes. Principal, Bei Yunj is committing campus violence. How can you indulge her? What nonsense are you talking about? The principal was furious and his face was ashen. Young people from outside sneaked in and harassed our students. As the dean of teaching, you don't know anything and you still have the face to mention campus violence? When the dean of teaching heard this, his face suddenly turned pale. He did not expect that the boy who was beaten up was not from their school. However, he had seen Bei Yunj hit him with his own eyes. There could be no mistake. By avoiding the topic, the principal was obviously trying to protect Bei Yunj, a student with a notorious record. The dean's eyes were filled with resentment and unwillingness, but he did not dare to speak his mind. That's enough. Bei Yunj, you can go back. The principal took a deep breath and massaged his glabella. All right. Bei Yunj was too lazy to look at the dean of teaching next to him. He just said goodbye to Zhao Yi and Zhong Xinglin and left the office. I really have to hand it to her. She's already acting like a tyrant in school. She's the only daughter of the Qin family. Chapter 106. Inexplicably. The girl closest to her actually felt her heart skip a beat when she saw Bei Yunj's excessively good-looking eyes and unruly appearance. Previously, someone had been discussing in private that Bei Yunj looked classy and sexy in her school uniform shirt and tie. But now, when she saw this person pull off her tie with one hand and throw it at someone's face with her own eyes, she really felt like she was being killed. This person was too amazing. In the entire Hengda High School, Bei Yunj was the first girl who made people feel that she had a special aura even when she was wearing a tie. However, this was also thanks to the boys from the previous cohort. In the past, the boys in Hengda High School wore ties and the girls wore collars. It was only when every cohort had boys snatching girls' pink collars to wear that they were all nondescript that men and women started to wear ties together a few years ago. Looking at Bei Yunj's cold eyes, the boy who had been acting strangely just now did not dare to speak anymore. After that, it was only when Bei Yunj returned to her seat and started playing with her phone that the atmosphere in the classroom eased a little. It was really scary just now. Class 1. Qin Yojiao played the piano in the lecture hall to welcome several researchers from the Computing Institute and was in the limelight again. But at this moment, she was still in a bad mood. Because Bei Yunj had actually gained old Mr. Zhong's favor. Qin Yojiao was doing her homework when she suddenly heard the people beside her discussing. Did you know that Class 7 almost got into a fight just now? Someone said softly and excitedly. Who's in Class 7? Lu Yuanci or Bei Yunj? Bei Yunj. She's about to snatch Lu Yuanci's position as the school bully, isn't she? The person who spoke said mockingly. However, Hearing this, another girl said seriously and excitedly, "How can you blame Bei Yunj? It's a boy who had a bad mouth and even did it in front of Bei Yunj. You don't know, but I was sitting in my friend's seat and saw this sister pull off her tie with one hand and throw it at that boy's face. She was so good that my legs turned weak and my heart melted. I've decided. Even if I fall in love early, I can't be too rigid about my gender. Forget it. If they really don't care about their gender, it won't be your turn. Can you shut up?" Qin Yojiao, who had heard the conversation from the side, clenched her fists as her eyes darkened. Even if Bei Yunj was an ignorant and incompetent troublemaker, would there still be people who liked her so much? Suppressing her anger, Qin Yojiao took out her stationery box and opened the small compartment at the bottom. She took out the piece of paper. On it was a string of phone numbers. Taking a deep breath, Qin Yojiao slowly pinched the note in her palm, her eyes filled with coldness and sarcasm. A person who lived in an orphanage and was inferior to her in every way wanted to become the young miss of the Qin family? Wasn't this a joke? In fact, Bei Yunj should not have come back. After all, no matter how hard Bei Yunj tried, there was no way she could beat her. And she would never allow Bei Yunj to make a comeback. The Qin family could only have one eldest miss who was the center of attention. At this thought, Qin Yojiao took the note and the spare SIM card and went to the female washroom. It was the last self-study period. Bei Yunj suddenly received a notification. "Are you the teacher my uncle introduced? My name is Jian Shi." Bei Yunj knew at a glance that this was Marcus's little niece. From what Marcus said, wasn't she unwilling to find someone to teach her? Why did she find her so quickly? Chapter 107. Bei Yunj found the name familiar, but she still agreed to add it. A few seconds passed. Jian Shi's messages kept popping up. "Did you complete the project that Uncle Stephen likes? Teacher, I don't think I've heard of you in the industry." In the dormitory of Yunqing University, a young girl was biting her pen and staring at her phone. She looked beautiful, but she looked a little nervous. Many people would want to be taken in by such a powerful person. The moment her phone rang, she looked down and saw Bei Yunj's reply. Yes. Cold and indifferent. It was indeed the style of a big shot. After Jian Shi reacted, she immediately continued typing. Then, "How many students does the teacher have? Can you take me in?" After sending it, Jian Shi was very nervous. She wondered if Bei Yunj would despise her for her pretentious words. After all, Bei Yunj had already agreed to take her in because of Uncle Marcus. However, she was afraid of causing trouble for Bei Yunj. Fortunately, Bei Yunj replied to her. "You're the first. There will be 2 more interns after that. If you're willing, you can." After reading the message, Jian Shi stood up abruptly and jumped around excitedly in the dormitory. "Ah! I'm going to lose it." Jian Shi's face was red and she did not look as cold as she did in front of others. She really liked that project. To be able to create such a project, her teacher must be a god. "Jian Shi, what's wrong?" Her roommate, who was suddenly woken up from her afternoon nap, rubbed her eyes. Jian Shi reacted and coughed lightly. She regained her composure. "Sorry, I'm a little excited and nervous." Hearing this, her roommate looked at her in amusement. "Yo, you're the first in the computer science department in our first year. You haven't even been excited about competitions or speeches. How can something make you excited?" Yunqing University was the best university in the country, and the computer science department was the best. As a student who skipped a grade, Jian Shi became the first in the computer science department and was also an influential figure in the school. "I found a professional teacher." Jian Shi's cold face was slightly flushed. "Very impressive. I remember. Isn't your Uncle Marcus? Why didn't you look for him?" her roommate asked. However, only she and Jian Shi knew about this in school. "Marcus is not powerful, I don't want to look for him." Jian Shi snorted and replied to Bei Yunj's message. It can't be. More powerful than your uncle? Your uncle was nominated for the Busaka Prize this year. She raised her eyebrows and started to boast. Of course my teacher is amazing. I feel that she knows everything. How could she say something like this in the tone of a brainless fan? This was incredible. Could it be that your teacher is a guy? Is he good looking? Otherwise, how could she lose her rationality and spout nonsense? She's eyelids twitched. She's a new member of my uncle's computing institute. Moreover, from Marcus's tone, he was obviously more concerned about Bei Yunj than the other members. As expected, she had picked up a treasured teacher. Besides, I'm my teacher's first student. She was elated. What a brainless fan. This time, Bei Yunj, who had just left school, suddenly remembered she's name. Why did it sound so familiar? Chapter 108. Besides, Bei Yunj still remembered that because she lost to Qing Zihuai, she developed special feelings for him and had been paving the way for him silently. However, later on, because Jian Shi and Qin Youjiao had an argument, Qin Youjiao's pregnancy was accidentally affected and Qing Zihuai almost strangled Jian Shi to death. Bei Yunj's eyelids twitched and she sent another message to Jian Shi. You must get first place in this computing competition. In the dormitory, Jian Shi, who was still in high spirits, suddenly had a question. How did the teacher know that she was participating in the computing competition? Could it be that her uncle had said it? She did not think too much and replied immediately. Teacher, don't worry. I definitely won't embarrass you. Bei Yunj glanced at it and thought for a moment. After replying, she put her phone back into her pocket. However, then, Bei Yunj heard a voice from the side. Can you help? Something might have happened to my granddaughter. I'm really worried about her. Let me go in and look for her. The security officer was a little impatient. This student has already finished school. She will definitely come out if she's fine. The anxious old lady was wearing simple clothes and holding the apron that she had just taken off. She looked out of place in this private high school. This was a high school for the children of rich families. How many of the students' grandmothers would dress like her? The old lady was also uneasy and could only cover her dirty apron with her hand. However, on closer inspection, there was also mud between her dry fingers. The security officer's eyes were filled with disdain as he reached out to push her out. Leave, don't get in the way. I think you're here to scam me. I'm not. Please, I'm here to find my granddaughter. The old lady was suddenly pushed by the security officer and lost her balance. Her face was pale and she closed her eyes instinctively. However, she did not expect someone to support her before she fell to the ground. A warm palm held the old lady's arm. Parents can't enter Hengda High School? The coldness in Bei Yunj's eyes made one's scalp turn numb and the smile on her lips was mocking. Of course the security officer knew Bei Yunj and immediately stammered, No. She's not a parent. Are you saying that my grandmother isn't a parent or that I'm not a student of Hengda? Bei Yunj's voice became even colder. At this moment. Only then did the old lady recognize that this beautiful girl was actually her you. The old lady's expression was agitated, but after a moment, she held her hand nervously. Are you hurt? Are you alright? Listen to Yen. Bei Yunj shifted her gaze from the security guard to the old lady. She was the director of the orphanage where the original owner lived. However, the orphanage couldn't continue operating and the old lady sent away all the children that could be sent away. As for the original owner, who wasn't adopted, the old lady kept her by her side and doted on her as if she was her own granddaughter. Who told you that I'm injured? Bei Yunj asked casually as she took out a wet wipe from her pocket and held the old lady's hand to wipe it carefully. You're not hurt? After the old lady came back to her senses, she looked guilty. I received a call. The girl said that she was your classmate. She told me that you're injured. Otherwise, she wouldn't have come to find Gu-er. Chapter 109. Bai Yunj looked up at the old madam and knew what was going on. Other than Qin Youjiao, there was no one else in the entire school who had the old madam's contact number. At this thought, Bai Yunj snorted. Sometimes, this idiot's way of doing things suited her quite well. Ever since Bai Yunj was taken away by the Qin family, the old madam had been hiding from Bai Yunj, afraid that Bai Yunj would be laughed at because of her. Therefore, even the original owner did not have the old madam's contact number. It seemed like this Qin Youjiao had indeed left a lot of backup plans. I'm fine. It should be a prank. Bai Yunj did not want the old madam to worry about her. Hearing this, the old madam froze for a moment before she beamed. It's indeed better to be biological. Look at how well our union is raised. Bai Yunj's lips curved and she saw a few people secretly taking photos not far away. She blocked the old madam's face quietly. Grandma, let's go and eat. Hearing this, the old madam's body froze and she hurriedly broke free from Bai Yunj's hand. Her voice was hoarse and bitter. Go back to the Qin family early. Grandma still has something to do. Grandma has to go home. Then can you still come and see me? Bai Yunj pulled the old madam's sleeve and shook it gently, looking at her with clear eyes. The old madam's eyes were sore and she could not bear to part with Bai Yunj. She would dream of Bai Yunj when she was young all night, but she could not bear for Bai Yunj to be criticized by others. This child had suffered enough when she was with her. After regaining her senses, the gazes that were looking at her and Bai Yunj shocked the old madam even more and she planned to turn and leave. But then, Bai Yunj suddenly hugged the old madam's hand and rubbed her exquisite chin against her shoulder intimately. Grandma, I miss you very much. Can you eat with me? With that said, the old madam's eyes turned red. The Qin family still let you interact with Grandma? The old madam had seen Mrs. Qin before and she did not seem to have a good temper. However, she was very loving to her adopted daughter. Come to think of it, he wouldn't treat Gu badly. Upon hearing this, Bai Yunj suddenly remembered that Mother Qin had warned Bai Yunj that if she ever met old Madam Qin in private in the future, she would sever ties with her. Bai Yunj raised her eyebrows and smiled. What are you afraid of? Even if the Qin family doesn't support me, Grandma is still around, isn't she? When the old lady heard this, she gently patted her hand and said angrily, How many years can I live? What will you do after I leave? This girl was simply disobedient. At the very least, the Qin family could ensure that she didn't have to worry about food and clothing. Suddenly, Bai Yunj's phone vibrated. When she answered the call, the man's deep voice sounded. Where is it? The driver said he couldn't find you. Seeing that Hushidu was calling, Bai Yunj said, Brother, I'm not going back today. I want to accompany my grandmother. Hushidu remembered that Bai Yunj's biological grandmother had long passed away. The person Bai Yunj was talking about should be Director Lin, who had taken care of Bai Yunj in the past. This child probably still did not know that the director of the orphanage who had raised her used to have a doctorate in biology. However, the experimental fees and patent fees that she had earned had all been donated. She lived a poor life and even used all her savings to open an orphanage. Are you going to eat? He suddenly asked. Bai Yunj was stunned. Yes. Let the driver send you guys. I'll look for you later. As soon as he finished speaking. Chapter 110. Hushidu did not seem like a leisurely person who could accompany her to meet her grandparents every 2 to 3 days. However, after the chat, Bai Yunj said to the old madam, Grandma, the driver is still waiting over there. Let's go over. Okay. The old madam glanced at the luxury car and felt that the Qin family seemed to be richer than she had imagined. After getting into the car, the driver, Uncle Chen, smiled and said, Miss Pei, Assistant Singh just informed me to send you to the restaurant. Sorry to trouble you, Uncle Chen. Bei Yunj nodded. Uncle Chen grinned. Miss, you're too polite. The school was not far from the restaurant and it was not the one she went to with Qin Yu last time. Along the way, Bei Yunj could tell that the old madam was a little uneasy. She chatted with the old madam from time to time to make her gradually relax. 20 minutes later, Bei Yunj brought the old madam to the front desk of the restaurant. However, before Bei Yunj could ask, an arrogant voice suddenly sounded from the side. Quick, get me the best room. I'm sorry, miss, but all the private rooms have been reserved, the receptionist revealed a professional smile. Excuse me, miss, do you have a reservation? Qing Shuyuan probably did not expect to encounter such a thing and her expression was a little ugly. Today, she had said that she would open a private room here and treat her friends to a meal. But now, she could not book a private room? In the next moment. Before Qing Shuyuan could speak, Bei Yunja's voice interrupted her thoughts. Excuse me, how do I get to room 307? When the receptionist heard the number of the private room, a trace of surprise flashed past her eyes before it turned into an even more respectful gaze. It's on the 3rd floor, the room on the far right. Miss, if you can't find a private room, I can get someone to bring you there. With that said, the receptionist looked at Bei Yunj with a respectful and careful gaze. The boss basically did not let guests enter room 307. Most of the people who could use this private room were the boss's distinguished friends. She never thought that one day, she would see a young girl and a plainly dressed old lady enter that VIP room with her own eyes. No need, thank you. After Bei Yunj finished speaking, she wanted to leave with the old lady, but she didn't expect to be stopped. Bei Yunj? It's you? Qing Shuyuan had been staring at Bei Yunj just now. She always felt that Bei Yunj looked familiar, but she didn't remember seeing such an outstanding girl. But soon, Qing Shuyuan's eyes widened in disbelief. This was actually Bei Yunj. The Bei Yunj who had been pestering her cousin, Qing Zihuai. Thinking of this, a trace of disgust appeared in Qing Shuyuan's eyes. How could this woman be worthy of Zihuai? She was too far away from Yu Jiao. He was simply overestimating himself. Who are you? Bei Yunja's reply was concise and comprehensive. It was obvious that she didn't want to bother with him. You're asking who I am? Qing Shuyuan's expression changed and she sneered. This Bei Yunj was really good at pretending. When she pestered Zihuai, she pretended to be pitiful every day. When she saw Qing Shuyuan, she was like a mouse that had seen a cat. But now, Bei Yunj had entered such a high-class restaurant and was pretending not to know Qing Shuyuan? Did she really think that she was the daughter of the Qin family? At this moment, Bei Yunj looked at Qing Shuyuan. After a while, she asked, You're Qing something? Chapter 111. Bei Yunj really didn't remember this person. Some time ago, she often had dreams from the original owner's perspective and had a rough understanding of the things and people that the original owner had experienced. However, Bei Yunj really didn't have any impression of the person in front of her. She seemed to be Qin Youjiao's best friend in the circle. She was also Qing Zihuai's cousin. Suddenly, Qing Shuyuan gritted her teeth. Bei Yunj, how dare you humiliate me? She actually pretended that she didn't even remember her name? This is. Old Madam frowned and instinctively shielded Bei Yunj behind her. I'm not familiar with her, Bei Yunj said calmly. Hearing this, Old Madam looked at Qing Shuyuan and said gently, Do you know Qing Shuyuan glanced at Old Madam and the disgust in her eyes intensified. She sneered and said harshly, You took the Qin family's money and brought your grandmother to such a high-class restaurant? I didn't expect Bei Yunj to be so filial. As soon as she finished speaking, Bei Yunj's expression didn't change, but Old Madam's face turned pale when she heard these sarcastic words. Classmate, you've really misunderstood. Qing Shuyuan glanced at Old Madam in disgust and took a step back. Misunderstood? I was there when Mrs. Qin said those words, so I heard it loud and clear. After speaking, Qing Shuyuan looked at Bei Yunj provocatively. Mrs. Qin said that as long as you contact the person who raised you before, she will sever your mother-daughter relationship with you. Bei Yunj, you can't deny this, right? Suddenly. These words were like a bomb that exploded in old Madam's mind. She quickly broke free from Bei Yunj's hand. She begged, Miss, don't tell Mrs. Qin about this. I'll leave now. Don't tell Mrs. Qin. This child didn't bring me here on purpose. I insisted on following her. I'll leave now, okay? Hearing this, Qing Shuyuan rolled her eyes and still looked arrogant. She was indeed used to living a poor life. She still wanted to rely on Bei Yunj to live a good life. Sure, let your granddaughter beg me. I'll pretend that I didn't see it. Qing Shuyuan purposely said. The old lady's expression changed and she nervously wiped her hands. Miss, can I beg you? Before old Madame Yang could finish, Bei Yunj grabbed her shoulders and spoke in a leisurely tone. Let her speak. Sever ties with Mother Qin. He couldn't ask for more. However, when Qing Shuyuan saw Bei Yunj's attitude, her face turned red with anger. Bei Yunj. Since that's the case, what right do you have to use this room? Didn't Bei Yunj want to cut ties with Mrs. Qin? She remembered that Qin Yojiao also had a card for this restaurant. It was given to her by Mrs. Qin. Bei Yunj was able to book a private room this time because she had a membership card from Mrs. Qin. What does it have to do with you? Bei Yunj glanced at her and quickly decided to go upstairs. Seeing this, Qing Shuyuan bit her lips, her eyes filled with unwillingness. She turned to look at the front desk and pointed at Bei Yunj. The card in this woman's hand doesn't belong to her at all. You're letting her book this? The receptionist froze for a moment and could only brace herself to ask Bei Yunj, Miss, can you let me see your card? I don't have a card. Bei Yunj stopped in her tracks and said slowly. You don't have a card? Qing Shuyuan's tone was sharp. Chapter 112. Seeing that Qing Shuyuan did not even care about her manners and wanted to see her make a fool of herself, Bei Yunj suddenly felt that it was very familiar. She remembered. This was the female supporting lead, Qing Shuyuan. In the original novel, she was completely a gun that would shoot wherever Qin Yojiao pointed. She had removed many obstacles for Qin Yojiao. The private room is opened by my friend. I came early. Bei Yunj glanced at the front desk calmly. The receptionist froze unconsciously and felt inexplicably terrified. Then, before the receptionist could speak, Qing Shuyuan said mockingly, Nonsense. How can you know friends in the industry? Did you secretly come to find a sugar daddy because you know that you can't live well in the Qin family? The moment she finished speaking, everyone could not help but look at Bei Yunj suspiciously. At this moment, the old madam's voice turned cold. Miss, you're spreading rumors. You can be sent to the police station. Oh, old madam, how many words do you know? You actually know how to send me to the police station? Qing Shuyuan's tone was full of ridicule and sarcasm. The person who raised Bei Yunj was just a country woman. She must have watched too many television dramas to dare to talk to her like this. Qing Shuyuan. Bei Yunj said slowly. What are you doing? Qing Shuyuan looked at Bei Yunj fearlessly and asked with her chin raised. Bei Yunj took the old madam's hand and smirked, her eyes cold. Apologize to my grandma. Hearing this, Qing Shuyuan found it even more ridiculous. Her expression was disdainful. Apologize? Bei Yunj, did you go to a mental hospital and your brain is damaged? The old madam hurriedly grabbed Bei Yunj's hand, not wanting Bei Yunj to argue because of her. Do you think you can walk out of here if you don't apologize today? Bei Yunj played with the wine glass placed on the front desk. When she raised her eyebrows, a cold glint appeared in her eyes. Qing Shuyuan, who met Bei Yunj's eyes, felt a chill run down her spine. When did this woman's gaze become so scary? However, just as the atmosphere was in a stalemate, another voice rang out from the side, interrupting everyone's thoughts. Baiyang, what are you doing? Hearing this, everyone turned around and saw a handsome boy walk up to Baiyang with an expressionless face. Cousin. It was as if Qing Shuyuan had seen her savior. She immediately went forward to hold Qing Zihuai's hand and said aggrievedly, Baiyang bullied me on purpose. I only said a few words to her, and she threatened me and refused to let me go. What did you say? Qing Zihuai turned to look at her. Qing Shuyuan paused for a moment, then said arrogantly, I'm just telling the truth. Jiao Jiao had already said that she didn't have a membership card for this store. But the moment she arrived, she booked a VIP room. If she wasn't with some shameful person, why didn't she let that person come out and meet us? Of course, Qing Shuyuan didn't dare to say that in front of Qing Zihuai. She could only vaguely remind Qing Zihuai. Why are you interfering with who she's meeting? Not long after, Qing Zihuai's words made Qing Shuyuan's smug face freeze. What was wrong with her cousin today? Why was he blaming her first? Cousin, isn't she fighting with Jiao Jiao for you? I was just angry, so I couldn't help but say a few words. Qing Shuyuan's words made everyone's eyes focus on Qing Zihuai. Chapter 113. When Qing Zihuai felt the gazes of the people around him, his handsome face darkened and anger gathered in his chest. This Baiyang was indeed not obedient at all. The Qin family would have a daughter sooner or later and would have to marry him. Although the candidate in his heart was Qin Youjiao, Baiyang was still slapping him in the face by attracting so many people. Baiyang, do you know how to write clean? Qing Zihuai laughed coldly and turned to mock her. Hearing this, Baiyang found it even harder to imagine that he could be the male lead of the original novel with such intelligence. Would she bring her old madam on a date with her sugar daddy openly? However, Baiyang only snorted, her overly beautiful eyes filled with ridicule. Qing Zihuai, when did it become your turn to teach me? In an instant. Qing Zihuai's expression darkened and Qing Shuyuan, who was beside him, was in disbelief. Baiyang actually spoke to Qing Zihuai like this. One had to know that Baiyang was dead set on Qing Zihuai back then. She was willing to do whatever Qing Zihuai said. Good, very good. Qing Zihuai took a deep breath. He rarely got angry in the past, but ever since Baiyang returned to school, his mood would be extremely bad whenever he saw this woman. Did you ask Shuyuan to apologize to you just now? Qing Zihuai stared at Baiyang with dark eyes and said coldly, she's the eldest young lady of the Qing family, so I'm afraid she can't. Since Miss Pei has the ability to get a membership card of this restaurant, I'll wait and see how Miss Pei will make Shuyuan apologize. In this restaurant, even Qing Zihuai rarely booked a private room upstairs, let alone a VIP room on the third floor. Gradually, the atmosphere in the restaurant was tense. This scene made the receptionist even more anxious, afraid that these people would fight in the restaurant. Oh, didn't Miss Pei get involved with some big shot? You want me to apologize? Sure, let him talk to me. Qing Shuyuan had a smug look on her face. No matter how powerful Baiyang was, could she hit her in front of Qing Zihuai? She wanted to see how Baiyang would be able to handle the situation with Zihuai around. At this moment, Baiyang's rosy lips curled up and she was about to speak. But in the next moment, just then, someone's warm palm gently pressed against her head, and a gentle voice sounded from above her head. Brother isn't here, and you're being bullied here? After saying this, everyone subconsciously looked at the man standing behind the girl. The man was wearing an expensive handmade suit, and his eyes were cold and noble. He casually stood beside Baiyang. He was still tall and had long legs, and he was so abstinent that it was hard to resist. Qing Shuyuan stared straight at Huashidu, completely stunned. However, when Qing Zihuai saw Huashidu, his face turned pale. Wasn't this the man he met at the entrance of the bookstore? Baiyang actually knew him? At this very moment. When Bei Yunj heard the voice, she knew who it was without even turning her head. "Brother, you're here so early?" The coldness in Bei Yunj's eyes dissipated and he looked up at Huashidu. Huashidu responded and handed a black bank card to the front desk with his slender hand. "Get Yu Hanran to prepare a membership card for your restaurant for me." Huashidu's deep and magnetic voice was lazy and indifferent. "Otherwise, the next time my child is bullied in your restaurant, I'll blame it on him." Huashidu had been to this restaurant a few times before, but with his status, he didn't need a membership card. Chapter 114. It was obvious that the receptionist recognized Huashidu and her expression changed instantly. "Oh, okay." Their boss was the young master of the U Corporation. However, when she met this gentleman by chance half a year ago, it was her first time seeing their young master be so polite to someone. Besides, it was obvious that their young master was a little afraid of this person. At the same time, seeing this, Qing Shuyuan's pretty face paled. She never thought that the man who was related to Bei Yunj would be such a man. In the past, Qing Shuyuan had always felt that her cousin, Qing Zihuai, was already an impeccable existence. However, seeing Huashidu in front of her today, it was the first time she felt like she was looking up to him, yet he was unreachable. But how could Bei Yunj approach such a man? "Who are you?" Qing Shuyuan's tone was unconsciously nervous. However, the man didn't even look at her. He slowly buttoned up his shirt and walked over to the old lady. "Director Lin, I'll settle this for Yunyun. Let's get someone to bring you to the private room first." With that said, Assistant Singh walked towards the old lady and said with a smile, "Old madam, don't worry. Miss Yunj will be upstairs soon. Shall I take you there first?" Although the old lady did not know who this strange man was, she knew that Huashidu had a noble status and his actions just now were to protect Gu. "Okay, then I'll go up and wait for you." The old lady nodded and let Assistant Singh help her upstairs. Then, after the old lady left, the man was ready to deal with the remaining people. "Sir, who exactly are you?" Qing Zihuai felt uncomfortable and was even more unwilling to believe that Bei Yunj knew him. This was the first man who made him feel inferior for no reason. Whether it was Huashidu's casual gaze or aura, it made him feel oppressed. "You bullied my little girl. Don't you know who I am?" Huashidu's posture was light and lazy, but it was inexplicably aggressive. The aura of a mature man was both lustful and refined. It could easily make one's legs turn weak. Before Qing Zihuai's expression could turn ugly, he saw the man suddenly reach out and grab Bei Yunj's shoulder. He effortlessly pulled her over. Bei Yunj subconsciously grabbed the man's suit, and the man's cold fingers pinched her cheeks as a punishment. He leaned closer and said in a low, magnetic voice, "Little kid, you don't know how to bully others, but do you know how to complain to your big brother?" This man's casual indulgence in his words was even more potent than an aphrodisiac, making it hard for her to resist. Bei Yunj stood on her tiptoes and leaned close to the handsome and noble man's ear. She raised her beautiful eyes and looked very charming. "How would I know if Big Brother would deal with them or me? Listen to Yen." The man chuckled in a low and hoarse voice. It was pleasant and casual, making people's ears go soft. Her cold, pale-colored pupils were tainted with an ambiguous gentleness. The corners of her upturned eyes were seductive, causing ripples in one's heart. For the first time, Bei Yunj noticed that the man's eyes were like peach blossoms. They only sparkled when he smiled. His light-colored pupils usually made people feel cold and abstinent. Chapter 115. The back of Bei Yunj's neck was pinched, and a numb electric current seemed to shoot up from her tailbone. It sounded like he was giving her face. However, this scene made Qing Shuyuan's heart churn with jealousy. She stared at the two people who were whispering in public. "Sir, Bei Yunj already has someone she likes. She likes my cousin, Qing Zihuai." Qing Shuyuan's heart ached and she became even more jealous. She could not imagine why such a man would fall for Bei Yunj. Qing Shuyuan. Qing Zihuai interrupted her with a terrible expression. However, he then stared at Bei Yunj, wanting to know if she would refute. Qing Shuyuan, do you have to disgust me in public? Bei Yunj asked slowly. At that moment, Qing Zihuai's expression turned even worse. Bei Yunj, you. Bei Yunj deliberately leaned closer to Washidu and placed her hands on the man's waist. She raised her eyebrows and looked beautiful and flirtatious. I'm sorry, student Cheng. I don't want my sugar daddy to misunderstand. It was not only Qing Zihuai. When Qing Shuyuan saw Bei Yunj's clingy look, she was so angry that her eyes almost turned black. Why did Bei Yunj seem to have changed into a different person now? She did not look as cowardly and afraid as before. At this moment, however, that noble and self-restrained man even placed a hand lazily on Bei Yunj's shoulder, as if he was supporting her. Was someone preparing to apologize just now? The man asked casually. In an instant, Qing Shuyuan's face turned pale and she subconsciously pulled Qing Zihuai helplessly. Zihuai, how could she not tell that this man was not to be trifled with? Qing Zihuai calmed down very quickly. Sir, this matter can be resolved. Actually, there's no need to embarrass both parties. However, the man sneered softly. His magnetic voice was indifferent and indolent, revealing a sense of oppression that went straight to the heart. I'm here to support my child, not to uphold justice. As soon as he finished speaking, many women in the hall who heard this had the urge to kill their boyfriends. This was the first time she had seen a man so unreasonable. However, Qing Zihuai, who had the worst expression, could only clench his fists and look at Washidu with a livid expression. What if I don't agree? Bickering with a brat who doesn't know the immensity of heaven and earth is quite demeaning. The man's smooth jawline was superior, his posture was gentle and lazy, and his casual tone still hit Qing Zihuai's self-esteem. Then let your parents come and take her away. With just a confrontation, Qing Zihuai felt the gap between him and the man in front of him. His eyes were bloodshot. He couldn't help but clench his fists and tremble all over. Assistant Seng, who had just returned, reminded him with a smile, Master Du, there seems to be only one listed company with the surname Cheng in Yuncheng. Some time ago, they even contacted the Hua Corporation to ask for a cooperation opportunity. After saying this, Qing Zihuai raised his head abruptly, his pupils constricting as he subconsciously took a step back. Hua Corporation, the Hua Corporation? All along, Qing Zihuai had some understanding of his family business. It was impossible for him not to know what kind of existence the Hua Corporation was in the country. The Hua Corporation. How could it be the Hua Corporation? Even Qing Shuyuan, a young lady who didn't understand the company, had a certain understanding of the Hua Corporation. Chapter 116. The way Qing Shuyuan looked at Bei Yunj was filled with strong resentment. If not for Bei Yunj, she would not have left such an impression on Washidu the first time she met him. Miss Cheng, if you want the Qing Corporation to pay the price, this matter will not be so simple. Assistant Seng reminded her considerately. Zihuai, what should we do? When Qing Shuyuan heard this, she immediately grabbed Qing Zihuai's hand. Her eyes were slightly red and she was a little afraid. She was the daughter of the second branch of the Qing family. Compared to Qing Zihuai, she was not favored. If she really offended the Hua Corporation, it was very likely that her parents would be implicated. Qing Zihuai was indignant, but he knew that he could not compare to Washidu. He gritted his teeth and could only look at Washidu with bloodshot eyes. In the end, his gaze landed on Bei Yunj. It was as if he hoped that Bei Yunj would settle the matter peacefully. However, Bei Yunj only looked at them with a faint smile. He had no intention of speaking up for them. This made Qing Zihuai's chest burn with anger. He endured it and gritted his teeth. Qing Shuyuan, apologize. Qing Shuyuan looked at Qing Zihuai in disbelief. Her eyes were watery as she asked aggrievedly. Zihui, what did you say? He actually wanted her to apologize to Bei Yunj in public? Apologize to Bei Yunj. Qing Zihui took a deep breath and said. I won't. Qing Shuyuan cried aggrievedly. She could not help but look at Huashidu again, hoping that he would be soft-hearted. However, Huashidu did not even look at her. He only casually reached out and brushed Bei Yunj's slightly messy hair behind her back. If you don't apologize, don't you know who will be implicated? Qing Zihui's tone became colder and more irritated. Qing Shuyuan bit her lip. Feeling the gazes of the people around her, she felt even more embarrassed. She had been pampered since she was young. When had she ever embarrassed herself like this? In the end, Qing Shuyuan hid the hatred in her eyes and could only look at Bei Yunj. Her voice was as soft as a mosquito. I'm sorry. What are you talking about? I can't hear you clearly, Miss Cheng. Bei Yunj's beautiful eyes twitched. Her behavior was a little bad, but she was so good-looking that no one could say anything bad about her. Qing Shuyuan's face turned red and white. She raised her voice and said, Bei Yunj, I'm sorry. Are you apologizing to the wrong person? Bei Yunj's smile did not reach her eyes, and there was no warmth in them. She walked up to Qing Shuyuan and reached out to lift her chin. Qing Shuyuan struggled subconsciously but failed to break free. She could only look into Bei Yunj's eyes, which were quiet and cold. She's not here now, but I have to listen to this apology on her behalf. But if there's a next time, guess what will happen to you? Suddenly. Qing Shuyuan looked into her cold eyes and felt a chill on her back. She had goosebumps all over her body. I apologize to your grandmother. Qing Shuyuan's legs went soft, and her voice trembled. I'm sorry, she looked at Bei Yunj in front of her. Her facial features did not change at all, but her gaze was unfamiliar and terrifying. In the past, Bei Yunj would never have such a terrifying gaze. After apologizing, Qing Zihui left with Qing Shuyuan. When they went upstairs, Bei Yunj suddenly spoke. Brother. Huashidu looked sideways and raised his eyes. Yes? Chapter 117. Bei Yunj was not that stupid. She knew how much Huashidu took care of her, including that time at the Qin family's old mansion. Bei Yunj also knew that Huashidu had stayed behind to talk to him alone because of her. Why do you ask? Huashidu's gaze landed on her unwaveringly. Brother and Qin, you seem to have a good relationship. Bei Yunj said with a smile. Hearing this, those who did not know would think that Huashidu was her biological brother. However, Huashidu could hear the alienation in Bei Yunj's tone. This little fellow looked lawless, but she was actually very meticulous. Bei Yunj indeed felt that she had caused Huashidu a lot of trouble. If it was because of Qin Yu, then Huashidu might be tolerating her. But in the next moment, Bei Yunj interrupted this thought. Huashidu reached out lazily, his cold fingers rubbing away the dirt on her chin. His tone was casual. I'm not willing to bring all the children of the Qin family home. Bei Yunj was stunned and looked up at him. Yun, have some conscience. Huashidu laughed hoarsely. His eyes were so dark that even the light was hidden. He was refined and lustful. Does brother treat you well because of someone else? Room 307. Bei Yunj pushed the door open and entered. The old madam could not help but stand up and call out softly, Gu, are you all right? I'm fine. After Bei Yunj finished speaking, she saw that Huashidu had followed her in. She said to the old madam, Grandma, he's Huashidu. He's second brother's friend. Hearing this, the old madam's frown disappeared. So he was second young Master Qin's friend. Then there should be no problem. Thank you, Mr. Hua, for helping Gu, out today. The old madam thanked him. Director Lin, you're too polite. After speaking, Huashidu did not disturb Bei Yunj and the old madam from catching up. He only chatted with them from time to time. Assistant Seng, who was beside him, was in disbelief. If Master Du had used even half of his patience on little young master would not cry all day long and say that he did not want to see his older brother anymore. Principal Lin, if you don't have a good place to stay now, you won't be able to find a place to stay. Why don't Junior arrange it for Dean Lin? What Huashidu said was exactly what Bei Yunj wanted to ask. There's no need to trouble Mr. Hua. I have a place to stay. The old madam was flattered. Then, she immediately smiled and shook her head. The more she looked at Huashidu, the more satisfied she was. From time to time, he glanced meaningfully at Bei Yunj. Bei Yunj did not notice the look in her eyes. She was thinking about something else. Grandma, is it because of Lin Jianan? Bei Yunj suddenly asked. The old lady had an only son named Lin Jianan. She bullied the weak and feared the strong. She liked to take advantage of others. Previously, old Madame Fu was afraid that Lin Jianan would do something embarrassing to ask the Qin family for alimony, so she sent Bei Yunj away in advance. The old lady felt a little guilty and uneasy. Jianan got married this year. He's preparing to have a child. I have to help Jianan take care of his wife. When she gives birth in the future, Jianan's wife will have to give birth. I will also. Grandma, is it his wife or your wife? Bei Yunj's eyelids twitched and she suddenly laughed. Grandma has let your uncle Jianan down. The old lady lowered her head subconsciously. Chapter 118. Grandma, that's an adult in his 30s. He's not even qualified to be a giant baby. Bei Yunj rubbed the space between her eyebrows and laughed again. Although the old lady opened an orphanage and did not make much profit, she was very thrifty. She gave Lin Jianan everything that could be given to him. However, this Lin Jianan seemed to be here to collect a debt. It was as if the old lady owed him something in her previous life. Grandma knows, but Grandma owes your uncle Jianan. The old lady let out a long sigh, looking a little helpless and disappointed. Actually, the old lady's family background was not good in the past. She was a child who came out of the mountains. Strictly speaking, she was sold to the city. However, the old lady was lucky. When she was escaping, she was saved by a gentleman. Later, she had the chance to go to school. Therefore, the old lady's potential was discovered and she became one of the few botanists in the country. This experience was a gift from the heavens to the old lady. Therefore, the old lady donated all her savings to charities that searched for missing children. She only left a small portion of the money to open an orphanage. Suddenly, Bei Yunj said, "You gave him life and raised him into an adult. Only he owes you in this relationship." At this moment, Huashidu looked at Bei Yunj in front of him and hid the smile in his eyes. He handed the key to the single-family apartment to the old lady. "Director Lin, you raised Yunyun for so many years. There are some thank you gifts that you should accept." "No. How can this do?" The old lady frowned and rejected him decisively. Bei Yunj blinked and quietly moved closer to Huashidu. "Brother, is this your house?" "Yes, Yunyun, don't be embarrassed. In the future, when Yunyun grows up, you can raise me." Huashidu's tone was casual as he deliberately teased her. Bei Yunj smiled at him. "Then I've really profited." Bei Yunj said that on the surface, but in her heart, she was thinking that she would have to withdraw the 3 months' salary that she had just received from the Computing Institute tomorrow to repay her debt. The salary of the top computing firms in the country was not low, and the top computing firms in our nation were even better. Although Bei Yunj was a new member of the Computing Institute, because of her outstanding professional qualities, Marcus did not treat her unfairly. Just 3 months of salary, if converted into country A's currency, would be more than 1.6 million. However, Bei Yunj also knew that the house Huashidu gave her was worth at least 10 million yuan. Otherwise, he would be letting down his status as the president of the Hua Corporation. Suddenly, Bei Yunj felt the pressure of being in debt. She glanced at Huashidu faintly without saying a word. However, unexpectedly, the old lady was also a stubborn person. She was unwilling to accept the house. In the end, it was also the first time that Bei Yunj had seen the old lady get angry. She told Bei Yunj to take good care of herself and left the private room. Bei Yunj turned to look at Huashidu, as if asking him for a solution. Seeing this, Huashidu subconsciously curled his lips and lazily unbuttoned the 2 buttons on his shirt collar. His posture was lazy and abstinent. He picked up his chopsticks and picked up some food for Bei Yunj. Let's eat. No matter who Principal Lin is angry at, she will never be angry at you. Chapter 119. Does brother know where my grandma lives? Bei Yunj knew what kind of person Lin Jiannan was. Of course, she also knew that Lin Jiannan would not take care of the old lady well. The place where the old lady lives is not very safe. I'll get someone to bring you there next time. Okay. Bei Yunj nodded. She also knew that this matter could not be rushed. In the bedroom, Bei Yunj looked at the medicine in her hand and fell into deep thought. In the past, she had seen people injected with medicine. Most of them were to alleviate their illness or suppress some kind of illness. Bei Yunj sent a message to Stephen. Stephen, I need your help with something. Can I? Soon, Stephen replied. Of course, Miss Pei. Please speak. I have a medicine. I'll go to the hospital tomorrow and check its composition. Can you help me analyze its effects? After a while, Bei Yunj saw Stephen's reply. No problem, leave it to me. Seeing this, Bei Yunj smiled and replied with a thank you. The next day, Bei Yunj had just arrived at the classroom when she felt that the atmosphere was unusually quiet. Meanwhile, her deskmate, the sleeping god, was awake with a displeased expression and flipping through the book in his hand. Bei Yunj walked to her seat and raised her eyebrows. Can you understand it? Lu Yuanxi was speechless. At this moment, many people could not help but look at Bei Yunj. They did not understand what was so good about Bei Yunj that Lu Yuanxi was so protective of her. Especially Ling Jiwei. Her eyes were red, as if she had just cried. However, when her gaze turned to Bei Yunj, it was filled with hatred and gloom. Just now, she had only said that Bei Yunj was a vampire of the Qin family and had brought her poor grandma to freeload on the Qin family's food. But in the end, she had angered Lu Yuanxi. This was the first time she had seen Lu Yuanxi so protective of a girl. He had said in front of everyone that if she had any opinions about his deskmate, she could tell him so that he would not fall out with her. At the thought of this, the sourness in Ling Jiwei's heart surged uncontrollably. Her face was filled with a mixture of jealousy and hatred. However, after Bei Yunj sat down in her seat, she began to play with her iPad. Student Pei. Chu Zhixing, who had fainted yesterday but had recovered today, called out to her in a low voice. Can you call me by my name? Bei Yunj's eyelids twitched, and she squinted at him. Chu Zhixing blushed. Yes. Classmate Pei, have you seen the school's forum? No. Bei Yunj didn't have the time to observe the social circle of a group of high school students. Chu Zhixing looked at her with some hesitation and gritted his teeth. Someone is in the tiaba, Chu Zhixing. Lu Yuanxi, who had been silent all this while, coldly interrupted Chu Zhixing. However, Bei Yunj looked up at Lu Yuanxi and asked, "What's wrong? You don't want little Chu to speak?" When Lu Yuanxi heard this, he felt inexplicably uncomfortable in his heart. Since when did her relationship with Chu Zhixing improve? It's nothing, Lu Yuanxi said. Is there something on the tiaba that has to do with me? Bei Yunj looked at Chu Zhixing. Chu Zhixing nodded heavily. Lu Yuanxi looked at the close relationship between the two of them and suppressed the discomfort in his heart. The tiaba has always been quite foul. I've already contacted the administrator to delete the post. Delete what? I really want to settle accounts with that person. Bei Yunji's beautiful eyes curled up. There was no warmth in her eyes as she spoke unhurriedly. Chapter 120. With that said, Bei Yunji clicked on the forum and saw the popular post immediately. Look at the new transfer student of class 7. She's a vampire from a wealthy family. Seeing this theme, Bei Yunji leaned against the chair and laughed unconsciously. Then, she clicked on the post with interest. The original poster's post was written in a melodramatic and righteous manner. It was easy to stir up the emotions of the high school students. In the past, I didn't think that Bei Yunji was so disgusting. At most, she was just a vain girl. But now, I realized that Bei Yunji is really sucking the blood of the Qin family. My heart ached for Qin Youjiao. Her brothers were snatched away and she was even trampled on by a vampire. I just want to know, Bei Yunji, where did you get your face from? Grin, picture, second post, is this Bei Yunji's grandmother? She's dressed like this, third post, Bei Yunji is really funny. On one hand, she pretends to be aloof and doesn't like anyone, but on the other hand, she's sucking the blood of the Qin family with her grandmother. Tisk, fourth post, original poster. I didn't like Qin Youjiao much in the past, but at least she's talented and good-looking. Now that she's compared to someone, my impression of her has skyrocketed. Fifth post, the Qin family is too pitiful. What kind of stupid illegitimate daughter is this? She's evil and vicious. Sixth post, where did so many keyboard warriors come from? If this is really Bei Yunji's grandmother, I think she has a good personality. After entering the Qin family, she didn't despise the poor and love the rich. Seventh post, I think some people are stupid. After entering a wealthy family, she's going to cut ties with the person who raised her? She's so arrogant. Eighth post, there's a saint bitch upstairs. Everyone, be careful. Bei Yunji flipped through dozens of posts in the post and her beautiful eyes looked interested. However, when Lu Yuanxi saw that Bei Yunji was actually browsing through her post, he realized that he had underestimated his deskmate's mentality. Aren't you angry? Lu Yuanxi, do you know who posted this? Bei Yunji looked at him and asked curiously. Lu Yuanxi was stunned. You suspect Qin. Before he could finish his words, he stopped. Lu Yuanxi had always had a good impression of Qin Youjiao, but he could also see the conflict and estrangement between Bei Yunji and Qin Youjiao. Could I have guessed wrongly? Lu Yuanxi pursed his lips in disbelief. Bei Yunji glanced at him. Her red lips curved slightly, but her tone was indifferent. Lu Yuanxi, I'll settle my own matters. I don't hate you, but don't interfere with what I want to do. She could tell that Lu Yuanxi was a good person and treated her well. However, it was not so easy to settle the score between her and Qin Youjiao. Bei Yunji looked at the photos in the post. They only captured her face and didn't capture the old lady's face clearly. She didn't show much emotion. He was going to check the information of the poster. But suddenly, the homeroom teacher called her out of the classroom. Bei Yunji, Mrs. Qin is here to look for you. Is she your mother? The homeroom teacher asked awkwardly. When Mrs. Qin entered the office with a dark expression just now, he thought that she was here to look for Qin Youjiao's homeroom teacher. However, he didn't expect that the person Mrs. Qin was looking for was him. I don't know her. Bei Yunji said slowly. Mrs. Qin is waiting for you in the office. Do you want to go and tell her? After all, she's here. Maybe it's something urgent. The homeroom teacher had heard about the Qin family, but he didn't think too much about it. He mistakenly thought that Bei Yunji was throwing a tantrum with Mrs. Qin. Now was the perfect time to ease the tension. Chapter 121. No need. Tell her to stay away from me. With that said, Bei Yunji wanted to turn around and return to the classroom. However, she did not expect a thin and sharp voice to suddenly ring out. Bei Yunj, are you planning to embarrass the Qin family in public? Mrs. Qin's expression was livid. She had also heard the conversation clearly and gritted her teeth as she stared at Bei Yunj. This movement attracted the attention of the people in the classroom. They couldn't help but look outside. Chu Zhixing stood up abruptly and walked to the door without thinking. Seeing this, Lu Yuanxi froze for a moment before he followed him out. However, unexpectedly, the moment Lu Yuanxi went out, he saw that elegant and beautiful madam reaching out to slap Bei Yunj's face with a dark expression. Qin Youjiao, who was standing beside Mrs. Qin, watched this scene unfold without moving. Then, before anyone could react, everyone saw that slap land on Chu Zhixing's face. Seeing that she had hit the wrong person, Mrs. Qin's expression darkened even more. Who are you? Who asked you to stand in front of her? Chu Zhixing's cheek was slapped to the side by that slap. Half of his face was red and swollen, and it was burning with pain. However, he heaved a sigh of relief. It was a good thing that this slap did not land on Bei Yunj's face. However, when Bei Yunj saw that Chu Zhixing had been slapped by Mrs. Qin, the temperature in her eyes turned colder and colder. She pursed her red lips. Why are you standing in front of me? Bei Yunj had planned to let this slap fall on her face. She wanted to use this as a pretext to sever ties with Mrs. Qin. However, she did not expect Chu Zhixing to take the slap for her without thinking. How can you be hit? Chu Zhixing said instinctively. Hearing this, Bei Yunj could not help but look up at him. After a while, she chuckled. Her eyes were already beautiful to begin with, but at this moment, they were even more dazzling. Seeing this, the darkness in Qin Youjiao's eyes surged as she clenched her fists tightly. Why was there always someone protecting her? Bei Yunj, do you remember what you promised me? Mother Qin's tone was still unpleasant. She said sharply, since you don't want to stay in the Qin family. Halfway through her words, Mrs. Qin saw Bei Yunj walking towards Qin Youjiao with her own eyes. In front of everyone, she suddenly raised her hand and slapped Qin Youjiao decisively. That crisp sound was even more hair-raising than Mother Qin's slap just now. At the same time, everyone was so shocked that they didn't dare to move. However, Qin Youjiao was stunned by that slap. She covered her face instinctively and stared at Bei Yunj in disbelief. Gradually, she broke down and screamed, Bei Yunj, what right do you have to hit me? Why? Bei Yunj licked her moist red lips and said in a playful and cold tone, a woman pays for her mother's debt. She looked at Mrs. Qin calmly and lazily, admiring Mrs. Qin's angry expression that looked like she wanted to kill someone. Mrs. Qin, since I can't do anything to you, but you hit my friend, it's very fair to return this slap to your daughter. Hearing this, Mrs. Qin was so angry that she wanted to hit Qin Youjiao again, but she was afraid that Bei Yunj would hit Qin Youjiao again. She gritted her teeth and said angrily, I should have strangled you to death myself back then. Hearing this, even the others felt their hearts turn cold. These were actually words from her biological mother. Mrs. Qin, aren't you too agitated? The form teacher regained his senses and immediately stood between the two of them. Those two slaps just now were so shocking that he couldn't calm down. Chapter 122. Everything happened too suddenly. Then, the form teacher saw that there were people around them. Why don't we talk in the office first? In the office. Mrs. Qin looked at Qin Youjiao with heartache and her voice was soft. Jiao Jiao, how are you? Are you all right? Qin Youjiao glanced at Bei Yunj and bit her lip. I'm fine. Mom, don't argue with her. If Grandpa finds out. Hearing this, Mrs. Qin hated Bei Yunj even more. She could not help but laugh coldly. This was her biological daughter. Relying on the old master's love, she was fearless and lawless. How could she compare to Jiao Jiao, whom she had raised personally? Bei Yunj, don't think about not leaving this time. I told you before that as long as you see the Lin family, We will cut ties. Mrs. Qin laughed coldly again. It's okay if you want to tell the old master. I will tell everyone that Qin Yojiao is my only daughter. With that said, a voice sounded at the door. Who is it? Before the others could react, they saw a young and handsome man walking in with his long legs. He was wearing a simple black short-sleeved t-shirt and a pair of jeans, making his figure look perfect. His beautiful dark eyes were long and black. Then, Qin Yu took off his black mask, revealing his handsome and arrogant face. Seeing that it was Qin Yu, Mrs. Qin thought that he had come to school specially for Qin Yojiao. Mrs. Qin laughed unconsciously, her anger dissipating by more than half. Qin Yu, you severed ties with your family back then and didn't come home for so long. I didn't expect that because of Jiao Jiao, baby, who bullied you. Second brother will teach them a lesson for you. Qin Yu's low and magnetic voice sounded and he hugged Bei Yunj naturally, but his eyes were cold. The form teacher was speechless. Oh no, this family was ready to stand on the same side and fight in school. A few days ago, Qin Yu had come to look for him and said that he was Bei Yunj's biological brother. He told him to call him directly if anything happened in the future. However, the form teacher did not expect that the result of this call was not to stop the fight, but to stand on the same side. Qin Yu. Mother Qin's expression changed, and her voice was sharp. Are you also planning to cut ties with me? Didn't it break a few years ago? Qin Yu hooked his arm around Bei Yunj's neck and said frivolously. Bei Yunj, she could not help but look up at Qin Yu and furrow her eyebrows. Why are you here? Second brother, we can't let anyone have the chance to bully our gu-er. Qin Yu was good-looking and a little careless. His lazy posture made the girls passing by outside stare straight at him. Qin Yu was even more handsome than on television. His smile was too charming. Second brother, Mom didn't bully Bei Yunj, Qin Yojiao could not help saying. She looked at the scene in front of her and tried her best to suppress her jealousy. In the past, she had mentioned asking Qin Yu to come to school to fetch her many times. However, Qin Yu had always changed the topic and had never taken it seriously. But now, he had come again and again for Bei Yunj. Qin Yu, take a good look at the wound on Jiao Jiao's face. This was hit by Bei Yunj. Mrs. Qin was so angry that her vision darkened. It was bad enough that Qin Lang had gone crazy, but now Qin Yu was also abnormal. However, what Mrs. Qin did not expect was that there would be someone even angrier. Chapter 123. Hearing this, Mrs. Qin was so angry that she almost couldn't catch her breath. You're not going to acknowledge me as your mother, are you? Mrs. Qin was furious and looked at Qin Yu with a pale face. I'll acknowledge whoever Gu acknowledges. Qin Yu raised an eyebrow, as if he had remembered something. He turned around and pulled up Bei Yunj's sleeve. Are you hurt? Let's second brother take a look. Qin Yu. Mrs. Qin's face was livid. What do you mean? I won't say anything if you hit Qin Lang. But if you hit Gu-er, I can't guarantee what I will do. Qin Yu's tone was calm and casual. After checking, he tidied up Bei Yunj's sleeves. In Mrs. Qin and the rest's impression, Qin Yu did not like to interfere in family matters, let alone protect someone like this. This scene almost made people think that Bei Yunj had drugged Qin Yu with some kind of bewitching potion. Good. Very good. Mrs. Qin was so angry that her chest was short of breath. After taking a few deep breaths and calming down, she asked again, do you know what's going on outside? Can you accompany second brother for a meal later? Qin Yu lowered his head and coaxed softly. Bei Yunj. I'm not allowed to leave the school in the afternoon. Then I'll take you out for a meal next weekend. Qin Yu smiled seductively and could not help pinching Bei Yunj's face. His sister was indeed the prettiest. Bei Yunj was silent. This Qin Yu was really much more troublesome than Qin Lang. At this moment, with a dark expression, Mrs. Qin flipped through the post and placed her phone in front of Qin Yu. Look, what did she do? Isn't she deliberately ruining our Qin family's reputation? Mrs. Qin said in disgust. However, Qin Yu took a look and his originally lazy aura instantly turned cold. His slender and good-looking fingers scrolled through the post. Very quickly, he took out his phone and called his assistant. Qin Yu's tone was cold. Check the school forum of Hengda High School for me. Find out who posted that post related to my sister. Changing the topic, Qin Yu suddenly laughed, but it made one's scalp turn numb. Then, his jade-like index finger continued to scroll through the post. He said gently, I will go through legal channels and appeal in court. No matter who bullied my sister, they will have to pay the price. In an instant, Qin Yojiao's face paled as she stared at Qin Yu in disbelief, her eyes red. In the past, brother Qin Yu would not be like this. He wouldn't be so protective of Bei Yunj and treat her so coldly. Qin Yu, do you want to embarrass the Qin family even more? Mrs. Qin glared at him in disbelief. Now, Mrs. Qin felt that Qin Yu was crazier than Qin Lang. For the sake of Bei Yunj, he didn't hesitate to publicize his relationship with Bei Yunj. If you want to end the relationship, do it as soon as possible. I'll take care of Gu. Qin Yu looked up, too lazy to reason with Mrs. Qin. Mrs. Qin's love for Qin Yojiao was stubborn to begin with. It was hard for anyone to change her mind, unless Mother Qin realized one day that her daughter wasn't worth it. Qin Yu. Mrs. Qin's face was distorted with anger. Teacher, I don't want other parents to look for my sister next time. Qin Yu turned around and started to instruct the form teacher. Okay, you're right. The form teacher stuttered nervously. She remembered that the slap had almost landed on Bei Yunj's face just now. Chapter 124. Other parents? Mrs. Qin was so angry that her body trembled. She gritted her teeth and glared at him darkly. All right, Qin Yu. Are you mocking your own mother? Have you done your duty as a mother? Qin Yu laughed, his tone calm. Bei Yunj, who was beside him, also frowned and glanced at Qin Yu unconsciously. Although in the original novel, Qin Yu had never interfered in the Qin family's matters and she had the least dislike for Qin Yu. However, she still felt that the current Qin Yu was protecting her too blatantly. I already gave her a chance to go home. What else do you want me to do? Mrs. Qin's eyes turned red and she became agitated. The form teacher beside her hurriedly tried to calm them down. Mrs. Qin, Mr. Qin Yu, calm down. Let's talk things out. Qin Yu pressed the tip of his tongue against the side of his cheek and bit it lightly. Thinking of how Mrs. Qin did not believe that Qin Yojiao had betrayed the Qin family until she died of illness in his previous life, he could not help but close his eyes. He really did not know why. The three of them added together could not compare to Qin Yojiao in Mrs. Qin's heart. Qin Yu opened his eyes again and looked at Qin Yojiao with a cold and threatening gaze. His thin lips twitched. I'll get to the bottom of this matter on the school forum. I won't let anyone who hurts Gu off easily. With that said, sure enough, Qin Yojiao's face paled and her legs turned weak as she staggered again. This was clearly not a big deal. At most, Bei Yunj would be scolded a few times. Why did second brother want to continue investigating? Could it be, second brother was suspecting her? Impossible. Second brother grew up with her and Bei Yunj had only met him a few times. Second brother, they're all classmates. Maybe they're just joking and can't stand Pei. Gu definitely won't mind. Qin Yojiao's face was full of smiles as she forced herself to say. Can't stand her? I want to see who is so capable to not like my Gu. Qin Yu snorted, the coldness in his eyes not diminishing. However, hearing this, Qin Yojiao panicked. Second brother. Qin Yojiao was incoherent. In the end, she grabbed Mother Qin's hand and begged softly, Mom, can you ask second brother to stop investigating? Mrs. Qin subconsciously froze and looked at the daughter she had doted on since she was young. After regaining her senses, Mrs. Qin suppressed the doubts in her heart and frowned. Qin Yu, this kind of thing, I'm sorry, Mrs. Qin. You protect your daughter, but I also have to protect my sister. With that said, before Mrs. Qin could flare up, another voice suddenly sounded from the door. Teacher Wen, doesn't your school's Chiba do anything about it? Do you know what they said about my younger sister? Qin Lang's angry voice entered everyone's ears. As the form teacher, Teacher Wen's eyelids twitched as he suddenly felt powerless. This was truly a case of one trouble after another. It's like this. I just contacted Qin Yuxian. Before the homeroom teacher could finish his explanation, Qin Lang asked in an unpleasant tone. Qin Yu, what are you doing here? I'm Gu Er's guardian. Qin Yu glanced at Qin Lang and slowly put his arm around Bei Yunja's shoulder. You haven't graduated from university yet. What right do you have to be Gu Er's guardian? Inexplicably, everyone could feel that the smell of gunpowder between the two elder brothers was getting stronger. Wait a minute, who was the one who said that Bei Yunj was not favored in the Qin family? Then what was with these two? Chapter 125. Qin Lang laughed coldly. You've only met Gu 3 or 4 times. Are you more qualified than me? At this moment, the people who were passing by at the door were in disbelief. It was also their first time seeing the famous male idol of the esports scene and the best actor of the entertainment industry fighting. It was too exciting. If they could take King photos secretly, it would definitely make the headlines. But what kind of winner was Bei Yunj? The male idols in other people's hearts had to fight for her affection. The girls at the door could not suppress their excitement and were discussing noisily. On the other hand, Qin Yojiao stood beside Mrs. Qin and found that the people outside were looking at Bei Yunj with envy. The resentment in her eyes grew stronger and she could not help clenching her fists. Why did Bei Yunj come back? If not for Bei Yunj, she would still be the beloved young lady of the Qin family in everyone's eyes. But now, looking at her two brothers who almost fought because of Bei Yunj, she felt like a joke. Qin Yojiao's body was trembling slightly as she tugged at Mrs. Qin's sleeve, sobbing a little. Mom, Mrs. Qin's expression was terrible as well. She held Qin Yojiao's hand and comforted her. Her voice was filled with anger. Are you planning to embarrass the Qin family? I'm talking about you, Qin Lang. Qin Yu's expression was natural. Before Qin Lang could retort, he said slowly, I've already cut ties with the Qin family. Qin Lang was speechless. Soon. Qin Lang turned around expressionlessly. Mom, if you want, you can stop treating me as a member of the Qin family. He could even stay away from Qin Yojiao, this virus. It was killing 2 birds with 1 stone. However, hearing this, Mrs. Qin's expression darkened. Suddenly, the form teacher interrupted and changed the topic. Ahem, about that, we will definitely cooperate with Mr. Qin Yu to investigate the matter regarding our school forum. Okay, thank you, Teacher Wen. With that said with a smile, Qin Yu took out his phone and said politely, Teacher Wen, let's add each other on WeChat. Just contact me as Brother Bei Yunj. Qin Lang was speechless. In the next second, Qin Lang immediately pushed Qin Yu away. At the same time, he took out his phone and scanned the form teacher's QR code even faster. Add me. Before Qin Yu could refute, Qin Lang smiled slightly. Second brother, have you forgotten? Aren't you going to join the cast for the parent-teacher conference next month? Qin Yu, this brat would be beaten up sooner or later. Seeing this scene, Qin Yojiao's eyes were filled with indignation, but she could only comfort herself that in the future, the Qin family's assets would be managed by her elder brother, Qin Luyan. Big brother was mature and steady. He would never fall in love with Bei Yunj like second brother and third brother. At this thought, most of Qin Yojiao's gloomy mood dissipated. Then, Mrs. Qin said sharply, "You're all protecting her, aren't you? All right, don't regret it in the future." Mrs. Qin could not understand why Qin Yu and Qin Lang would favor someone like Bei Yunj, who was antisocial, ignorant and incompetent, and even dared to push Jiao Jiao down the stairs personally. She took a deep breath and turned to Bei Yunj. "Bei Yunj, we have nothing to do with each other from now on. I only have one daughter, Jiao Jiao. I'll get someone to publicize this matter." Hearing this, Qin Lang furrowed his eyebrows instinctively, but Qin Yu watched this scene lazily. Okay. It's best that Mrs. Qin doesn't regret it. Chapter 126. Bei Yunj agreed so readily that Qin Lang was a little stunned. Didn't Gu always hope that Mom would dote on her more? Regret? Mrs. Qin's gaze was distant and her tone was cold. Don't worry, it's impossible in this lifetime. At this moment, the form teacher of Class 7 was even more anxious. Mrs. Qin, this is not how you teach a child. If you sever ties with her because of some small matter, all the orphanages in Yunsheng will have to line up. The form teacher persuaded, Bei Yunj is actually a very kind child. You have to care for her more, Jiao Jiao. After school, Mom will take you to meet a friend. Mrs. Qin turned around and caressed Qin Yo Jiao's head lovingly. Seeing that Mrs. Qin's attitude towards her was still the same as before, Qin Yo Jiao felt a little comforted. She smiled sweetly and said obediently, "Okay, I'll listen to Mom." The form teacher was speechless. He finally understood that the internal members of the Qin family were really taking sides. Mrs. Qin treated Qin Yo Jiao as her favorite, while these two older brothers treated Bei Yunj as a treasure. The wealthy families were really messy. The form teacher took a deep breath and could only pat Bei Yunj's shoulder and say gently, "Study hard. I know you're a good child. If you need any help, I'll help you." "Thank you, teacher." Bei Yunj smiled. After Mrs. Qin and Qin Yo Jiao left. "When are you leaving?" Bei Yunj's tone was calm and there were no fluctuations. Qin Lang became nervous and could not help saying, "Gu, don't take the matter of the forum to heart. I'll settle it." Fortunately, he had been paying attention to Hengda's matters. Otherwise, he did not know what kind of grievances his Gu had suffered. Bei Yunj looked up at them. After a while, she said, "Actually, I didn't just want to sever ties with her today." Qin Lang and Qin Yu froze. "Gu, Qin Lang's voice was hoarse and his eyes darkened. "Do you really not want third brother anymore?" Bei Yunj was about to say what she had wanted to say for a long time when her heart suddenly hurt. Her beautiful face suddenly paled, and a thin layer of sweat appeared on her forehead. In a hurry, Bei Yunj placed a hand on the table with difficulty and adjusted her breathing. "Gu, what's wrong with you?" Sensing Bei Yunj's strange behavior, Qin Yu hurriedly supported her. After Bei Yunj gradually came back to her senses, her eyes also became clear. During this time, she had been repeating the dream of the original owner. She could even clearly sense the emotions of the original owner. She dreamed that the Qin family had gone bankrupt after offending someone. Big brother's leg was broken, second brother's face was disfigured, and third brother's hand was damaged, so he could no longer compete. As for the original owner, in order to save Mrs. Qin, she had saved up a huge amount of medical fees and worked 3 jobs alone. Even Qin Lang and Qin Yu had gone to work as temporary workers. These days were hard and tiring, but to the original owner, it was the warmest time of her life. Every night, when the original owner came back, she would get snacks that her brothers bought on the way. Her brothers would secretly watch her work and slip some change into her pocket. He was afraid that she would work too hard. At the same time, he felt guilty for not giving his sister the best life when their living conditions were the best. However, even so, the original owner was very satisfied. However, things did not go according to plan. As time passed, the original owner realized that she had also contracted a chronic illness, you're tuning in to the Biyao's Wuxia Chronicles YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.